All right. Thank you all for coming. As you can see, there's 185 of us in here now, 190. So keep growing. Again, please welcome people. Chat is open. Please feel free and share your LinkedIn profiles, as I see some of you are doing. This is a great place to network. Everybody's learning. You're all weird that you decided to spend whatever time it is, wherever you are on Friday, to come and watch me crash and burn here live on air. But that's great because you guys can partner with one another and learn from one another. And I always find that's the best way. If somebody tells you that they're an expert vibe coder, you should chuckle. There is no such thing as an expert vibe coder. And I certainly am not going to pretend to be one. Although I'm going to stand here and I'm going to be doing it in front of you, and we will master it together. Okay? Mostly you're not going to see my face so big here. You're going to see my screen. And then again, periodically, I will take little breaks and then maybe queue up the questions. If folks can answer questions for one another, please do. In fact, I know for a fact, Kevin, for example, who's here, Vanderveer, has even more vibe coding hours under his belt than I do. And so there are, true experts here that are attending. And I see Lewis is here too. So there's like a bunch of folks here that you can ask questions of. And then, if I'm really, really stuck and just dying here on the vine, and just please chime in and say, oh, you're doing it all wrong. Okay? Because again, the purpose of this thing is for me to learn whether I can teach this thing and whether you guys understand it and all of that. Okay. One last time, I'm going to say this for the people that just joined. Welcome. As you can see, this is a meeting, and so you can turn on your camera, keep your microphone off. But if you'd like to turn on your camera, we love it. That would be super valuable to us. If you're in any kind of like a witness protection program, please don't turn on your camera. But other than that, you can turn it on. Okay, let's do this. Can you guys see my screen well? Louis, I'm looking at you. Fantastic. I'm using this new thing that all the cool kids are using called Excalidraw. So no more, Google Slides for me. And so we'll see how all this thing works, but I kind of like it. Okay, so, for those of you that know nothing about me, I'm an old nerd, is the way I describe myself these days. I started writing code in 1984 when I was 14 years old after watching the movie War Games in the theaters. And since then, I studied electrical engineering, got a degree in electrical engineering, but I've never done a single day of electrical engineering work. I've always done software, although I've never taken a software class in my life. I'm completely self-taught, and have had quite a long career here since 1984 in building things. I built the web team at Fujitsu, which is this giant Japanese company in the mid-90s. I built two venture-backed companies. This one started in 2000. This one started in 2005. Aconics was a cybersecurity company, enterprise software cybersecurity company that I built and ran for 5 years, raised $34 million in venture capital there. I then started a big competitor to YouTube called VO Networks, raised $70 million there. I then went to MySpace. If any of you were MySpace users, can I see a show of hands? Anybody use MySpace? Okay. By the way, I'll show you, if you remind me later, I'll show you a MySpace magic trick that I do. So I was CTO of MySpace. Then I went to Google for 4 years. And then since then, I've been building these other companies. One's called Koji, that was built and sold to a company called Linktree. And now, MindStudio. Now, the reason I'm showing you all of this is not, to wow you in some way. This is just a checkered past, is the way as I like to see it. But to show you that I've sort of been around the block for a long time. And a bunch of the things I'm going to say are, you should take this into account because like we've seen the transformation of what it is to build products and how you build products and who can build products and how long it takes to build products. And so I've seen it for a very long time, and we're certainly in a very exciting, time now. And that's why I'm sort of excited to show this thing to you. So this idea of vibe coding, I would argue, isn't new. This is Luis and I vibe coding like circa 2019, where Luis is doing the coding, and I'm sort of standing there saying, "No, please do that." I found this picture, Louis. I see you smiling. I thought this was like a perfect one to show what vibe coding is. Vibe coding is a lot like this. And if you go further back, this is sort of me with other teammates. I'll call vibe coding in 2006 and in 2005. And as I put here, if Wired Magazine photographer ever asks you to do some creative photos, I encourage you not to do them. And if you Google Dmitry, Shapiro, and Getty Images, you'll find all kinds of other things. By the way, I encourage you not to Google that, but if you did, you'd see it. Okay. So over these years, all kinds of things have changed and continue to change, and change is obviously accelerating. Again, I've started 3 companies, was founder, they were all venture backed. So starting the company has changed, how you sort of form the founding team and how you grow the team has changed, and how big the team needs to be and what kind of people you need to get, all of that. How you build the product has changed fundamentally. That's what we're going to be doing the rest of the time here. Once you've built the product, how do you take it to market? How do you market it? That's changing dramatically. And then, obviously raising money itself has changed fundamentally. I don't know how much any of you track what's happening in venture capital, but venture capital is getting completely refactored. So the things that worked, last year don't work anymore. And in fact, sort of fundamental questions of like, does venture capital as an asset class actually exist moving into the future because of a lot of these dynamics that we're going to be talking about today. So I think if you look at sort of the flow of what would typically happen when somebody has an idea and tries to build it, in the past, it would be you've got this idea, you figure out how to get the founding team together, and then you build some thing, typically a prototype that you can start showing around to friends and family, sort of validating your idea, and then hopefully being able to raise some money, either from friends and family or angel investors, et cetera. And then if you're successful at this, which by the way, I don't know what the percentages are, but it's trivial of like the people that fail sort of in this place here that never get to raise a seed round. But if you do raise a seed round, then start sort of the real work of like actually building out the engineering and product team and UX and all of that, actually not having a prototype, but launching a real product, sort of a minimum viable product, and then finding what's known as product market fit. By the way, I know that there are developers here, in this room, and there are very senior and seasoned product people, and I'll even say AI experts. Again, I always use in quotes if somebody says expert, and especially AI expert. But mostly I'm going to try to keep this, my language, like super, super accessible because many people here are not that at all. And that's great because the folks that are going to be learning at Stanford also are not going to be technical. So I'm going to intentionally be as untechnical as I possibly can be. And again, even explaining this, many people don't know what a Series A is. I'm not going to get into it, but this is when you raise venture capital, these are the different stages of raising venture capital. And then anyway, as you keep sort of scaling, you follow this track. This is generally the track that these things follow. And throughout the track, there's lots of bottlenecks. And these bottlenecks mostly relate to people and time. And, in sort of this formative stage, most companies, again, I get approached by many, like I don't count them, but certainly over the years, over 100 folks that have an idea. And oftentimes they're very successful in industry. And they have an idea and like they want me to join them to build the idea, or they want me to help them find a technical co-founder to do it. And this has always been a huge hurdle right here. It's like finding a technical co-founder that's going to follow you along with your idea and build this thing for you. And so most people just fail right here. If you get through that, then the next thing is how long does it take your technical co-founder and you to build something that's worthy of sort of showing around and validating your idea? And then again, potentially raising a seed round. And so between these two, this is months of work. Some people take years, which is a disaster if that's what it's taking you years to do it. But this months of work. And again, the vast majority of teams fail right here. But again, even if you do raise your seed round, and by the way, the first round of venture capital I raised, I didn't raise a seed. I raised a Series A. I bootstrapped the Seconix company with $3.25 million of sales in a year, and then raised a $5 million round in April of 2001. And when I got off the call with the VCs and they committed to investing $5 million, I cried. It was like this crazy stress relief. And so if you do get here, it's like, oh my God, now all is going to be great. I can relax. I can cry and relax. And here I am not realizing what you're getting yourself into. That this is where all the hard stuff starts. That this was easy. This is hard. And throughout it, again, time and people are the bottlenecks. But now we have this new thing, called generative AI. And that new thing, it's not a thing, but I'll call it a thing for now, is has changed all of that, is changing all of that. Again, I want to kind of touch upon a number of those things. We'll focus on building product here in a sec, but I wanted you guys to sort of get the framing of this, of like, what are you building this product for? If you're sitting inside of a big organization, your job is to build a product inside the organization to help a team or help a person or a process, et cetera. That's sort of one way of building products. Again, the people that I'll be teaching at Stanford are folks that want to start a company that want to build something, bring something new to market. So start a team, build a company, and sort of go through that process. But if you're building product, Gen AI has changed it. And if you're building companies, Gen AI is also dramatically transforming it. In our day job, I, Luis, Giorgio, Danielle, and some other folks, again, run this company, MindStudio, which is a platform that's used by organizations to do AI, business process automation, AI-driven business process automation, build custom tools, et cetera. So we're in the middle of this as organizations are refactoring their operations by leveraging AI to help employees have new, much more powerful tools so they can do their work better, to take some things that employees have been doing manually and automate those things so employees don't have to do that. They can do other things. And so this is a huge gold rush that's going on right now. That's not what we're going to be talking about in this class, but I wanted to make sure that I brought that up here. All of that is changing as well. Okay, so with those changes in mind, some of these things become much less irrelevant. For example, today, again, I'm about to teach you, you can have an idea, and then you can build that prototype. And you can even, if you spend enough time and you get good at it, and depends on what your idea is, get it to a point where you can deploy it, and you've got a minimum viable product, and you might be able to find product market fit. My product market fit is a clear signal that customers love your product, want more of it, and that's when more people show up, want to give you money. You get money from the customers, you get money from investors, then you can go hire your team and really scale it. You got to get to product market fit. But again, everybody got stuck here before. Well, this is unstuck now, and the implications of that are profound. Both positive, that now all of you can do this. Okay, and I hope that by the end of this class, I would have, one, showed you how to do it, two, made you believe that all of you can do this, and sort of gotten you excited about going and doing this. So all of you will be able to get through this phase and get to something here. But that's also a problem, because if you can do it, everybody else can do it. And therefore, there is no such thing as, it's typically known in investment circles as a moat. Like what prevents other people from showing up and competing with you? Nothing. Nothing prevents other people. And by the way, the other thing that you should keep in mind is that all of the things I'm showing you here, specifically from like when we deal with Replit and how this vibe coding is done, how this AI assisted development is done, all of that is going to change like in the next couple of weeks. The pace of change, the evolution of these tools, and therefore what you will need to adopt to as it changes. Nobody's ever seen anything like that, of course. Again, I've had many, many decades now of experience with this. And, in the tech space, you always had to be able to evolve really quickly. But this is, an order of magnitude or even more, like faster than that. And so, like, if you watch YouTube tutorials, if you wanted to learn how to write JavaScript, it didn't matter if the tutorial was 2 years old, 3 years old, 5 years old. It was still relevant. You could watch it. But if you want to learn to vibe code, if the tutorial is more than a couple of weeks old, don't watch it. Like there's no point watching it because things have changed already. So, don't get too stressed trying to like memorize what I'm doing here or take notes or any of that stuff. By the way, you don't have to take notes. This is being recorded. And then we have AI agents that can look at transcripts and create cheat sheets and create summaries and create workbooks and all of that. And nobody ever needs to take notes anymore, unless it like you believe that it helps you sort of remember things, which I do believe. So again, I'm not telling you don't do it, but you don't have to do it just to capture the material. Okay, so the time is being reduced. We go from months to days, if not hours. And then requiring smaller teams. We've seen a lot of these layoffs in companies. They're for a number of reasons, including this reason that the big companies know that AI is going to reduce the need for humans to be able to do the things that people used to do in tech companies, like write code and do QA and do all kinds of design. So you get smaller teams, and then more and more things get automated throughout this process. The real bottleneck that still exists, in fact, it's gotten even bigger, is this bottleneck between a company which has raised a seed round and this sort of first big round, the Series A. There's a huge, huge bottleneck here right now, and will be for the foreseeable future. In fact, I'm certain we never get out of it simply because of, again, there's so much coming through the pipe, and things are moving so fast that this becomes sort of one of the biggest problems with venture capital. Okay, great. I'm almost done with this, and then we're going to start, writing some code. I love how people now jump on like new trends. We had this like crypto trend that everybody jumped on. Everybody became a blockchain expert, and then this is the new trend, which is now everybody is an AI expert. And if you go to YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, you will see lots of, let's call them influencers, that are saying, "Hey, this stuff is amazing. Come watch Dmitry wave his hands for a couple of hours." And you get these like amazing thumbnails and titles of like, I spent 2 hours doing this thing and now I'm generating, $50,000 MRR, or I built $1 million app vibe coding. And this is awesome because it gets many, many clicks, and, and these people are making a bunch of money from ads. But I just wanted to make sure that, well, again, I actually love the way they do these thumbnails from an artistic standpoint. Don't pay too much attention to this. Like, don't feel bad that you haven't yet vibe coded the $1 million SaaS app, because they haven't either. They're just playing. It's kind of the same way that Donald Trump said that everything was going to be cheaper on day one. And he was just joking. And this is the same thing. Yeah. Mostly, I would say this is what vibe coding feels like. It's like you're sitting around and you're waiting for the machine to do something that you were hoping it was going to do faster, and it's like rolling and rolling, and it's talking to you. It's like, I'm almost there. You'll see this here in a moment. I'm on the right track. Replit says, I'm almost there. You just hang on. And you're just like sitting around. Again, coffee helps. And then you're confused and certainly frustrated. At least that's what it's been for me. And I'm pretty sure that's what it's going to be for you guys too. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Okay, so back to vibe coding. So, vibe coding is asking someone else to do your work for you. And thank you, Louis. Louis is, I can't live without Louis. Uh, and so like, I just can't do it. And so he's been my vibe coder and vibe product guy and vibe marketing guy and support guy. And like, yeah, I'm just going to start calling you vibe guy. Most people don't have a Louis until now. And now we all have it. And I've practiced this for many years now. How many years? 10 years? Something like that? Yeah, 10
Yeah.
years. And so I know this well. The way you do it is you ask, and I encourage you to call your vibe coder, Louis if you want. You can give it any other name you want, okay? And you basically ask Louis to do something, and then you basically say, no, that's still not it. I don't like that. And then Louis says, okay, I got you. And you just do that over and over and over again. That's vibe coding. And if you understand that, you're going to be good to go. Okay. So again, for people that are technical and developers, I don't need to explain this, but again, I suspect many of you are not, and so you may not know the difference between a native mobile app and what's known as a web application. And it's important to understand that these are different. Now, you can have web applications that run on your phone, that get rendered on your phone, so they feel like mobile apps, but they're not native apps that were built. And so the thing you need to understand is like the way you build mobile applications is different than the way you build web applications. And even though there are folks that are using, again, vibe coding, AI-assisted coding to write mobile applications, the vast majority of things that people are building with vibe coding are web applications, and that's certainly what we're going to focus on. Don't fret about this. Web applications are, 98%, I would say, of what mobile applications are, maybe even 99%. So anything you need to do with this, chances are you can do with web applications, and this is what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be using this thing called Replit. I've tried Lovable, I've tried Bolt, I've used Cursor, I've never used Windsurf. There's a bunch of these names you hear out there. It doesn't actually matter. We're going to use Replit, but kind of the patterns you will learn in getting Replit to do it are the exact same patterns in all the other ones. The interfaces might be a little bit different, but it's really all the same. And again, all of this is changing extraordinarily quickly. And therefore, like, don't get stuck on it. Try new tools, like this skill set, if you could call it this, like some of this perspective that I'm going to give you in this class is absolutely fundamental, and you'll be able to reuse it as time goes on. By the way, where is all of this going? If we like sort of stop here, see what else I've got here. Actually, I guess this is a good slide for this. The time it takes to build an app and effort it takes to build an app is also misunderstood. I think, again, because of sort of hype like this, where like in 60 seconds, I created my app. What does that mean? Well, I typed a prompt and this thing says, here's your new app, congratulations. It seems like it's $1 million SaaS app to me, right? Or 2 minutes, or seconds, which I guess is less than 60 seconds. You just develop a simple app that helps creators by monitoring specific subreddits daily, filtering posts to extract only questions, generating draft answers using the OpenAI API, and allowing users to review, edit, and publish these drafts. Once published, the app will send a comment to Omega indexer for indexing, whatever that is. Okay, awesome. So it seems like you just got to type that in, wait a couple of seconds, and you got an app. That's pretty cool. And so while today all of this is sort of sensationalism, this kind of is where all of this is going. Meaning these AI models are evolving extraordinarily rapidly. And because each AI model helps you build the next AI model, it's only going to accelerate exponentially. So, the capabilities of what any individual non-technical person will be able to do and the time required to do it are both going to shrink dramatically, like now. weeks, months. And so we'll get to a point where it's this, but the problem is when you get to a point where it's this, again, maybe it's not seconds, maybe it's even an hour, but the thing does it itself. You write this and it says, I got you, I can figure the rest of this stuff out. And it launches a product for you and it's ready to accept money and go. We're going to be there very, very quickly. Now, what you do with that, nobody knows. I propose what that gets us into is kind of the memification of companies and applications, which is like, because it's so fast and easy to build it, you can build hundreds of applications a day and then launch them. Some of them might take off a little bit and you'll make a little bit of money. And then, tomorrow they're all irrelevant. But it doesn't matter because you could spin up another 100 applications. And so just like memes, some memes take off and become famous and they get their 15 minutes of fame. Most memes don't, but because it's so cheap to produce memes, you just have this like tsunami of memes. We're going to have that with products. And that's on one hand exciting. On the other hand, I don't know what to call it, head spinning weird. Okay, so basically you can type in build me $1 million SaaS app and hit go to launch, come back and here you go. Okay, so we're about to start actually doing things. And so I propose the most important thing you need right now to get started using one of these AI-assisted coding platforms is what's known as a PRD, a product requirements document. Okay. You could go to Google or ChatGPT or anything else and search for PRD and get a PRD template. PRDs are things that typically in companies, product managers put together and then share with the rest of the team, and they sort of iterate on it and they add design things to it, and then they add technical architectural things to it, but mostly it's owned by the product manager. And so you're going to be playing product manager generally when you do vibe coding. Again, I actually really dislike this term vibe coding because it also has like a bunch of other connotations where you're sort of like jamming, you're like doing jazz. You kind of didn't have anything in mind. You just said like, let's create an app. How about this? And then once you do that, I might say, oh, wouldn't it be cool if you added that? And by the way, that's cool. You can do that. But if you're trying to build something specific, like you've got an idea, then the first thing you need to do is you need to put together a product spec. Is also sort of another term that's used for this, product spec or product requirements document. And so the thing that we're going to attempt to build today is something that I came up with, and I'm calling it Chirper. Chirper, as you can see here, I'll make it a bit bigger. Can you guys read that? Yeah, can I get thumbs up?
Maybe go one size bigger, Dmitry.
One size bigger, thank you. How about that?
Yeah,
Okay,
great.
I'm going to read some of these things. So first I'm going to scan through it. So it's got a bunch of sections, kind of like a product overview, some functional requirements, again, sort of a summary of them, sort of enumeration of important features, user account management, creation and display. And so you sort of enumerate features. More. If you're opinionated about technology, about the stack, in this case I am, and so you can put that in, but you don't have to. These systems will either make their own decisions there or ask you questions. Then you can Google what all these things mean. If you, again, are opinionated on what the database should look like, the vast majority of these things, sorry, let me take a step back. The vast majority of the things that you will see that are like tutorials on YouTube on vibe coding are people that are building things that don't require a backend at all. Okay, I'm going to assume that all of you have heard these terms front end and back end, right? And I'm not going to get into kind of what they mean, but these are full stack applications. And so typically applications that are really sophisticated are full stack applications. They have a front end and they have a back end, and the back end is a server and a database and some other, systems that are there. And so most things people are building, actually, like if you ask Lovable, build me this, it will build you like the home page. It will build you like a nice landing page. And it looks nice, and it's got the right sections, and it filled in a bunch of content, and it's got nice images, and you're like, look at this thing, it's built for me, it's amazing. But it's like a veneer. Like there's nothing behind it. It's if you click on buttons, they don't work because there's no back end to it. but it looks great and it makes good videos. But if you're building things that do have a back end, I think it's valuable as you get better at this to start thinking in the form of like, how am I going to store the data? Like, what's the database going to look like? And these are called database tables, and then fields in the table and how they're related to one another, or schemas. And so this is valuable to do. By the way, all of this is uh, not absolutely necessary for you to write in order to start vibe coding, but I'm showing you things that would make your experience, better and allow you to get to your finished product faster, is if you plan before you show up and start jamming with the vibe coder, right? If you show up and just start jamming, you can do it. And if you got lots of time and like you like it, that's fantastic. But I would propose, if you're trying to build something specific, you should spend, 80% of your time in this document, and then 20% of your time building the thing, and then refining it. There's going to be bugs, there always are, and then chasing down bugs and all that. Defining the user flow, some of the most common ways that people often also known as user journeys. How do people sort of get through your product? And then sort of a bunch of other things if you wanted to add. By the way, I did not write this PRD. I don't have the time. I'm running I'm running a company. And what I did do is I came up with this idea, and I had my friend Claude over here just write the PRD. And I said, I'm going to build a social media platform that's like Twitter, but without kind of all the rage and I don't know what to call the thing that I see. Kind of like what happens if you pick up a rock and look underneath it. It's like all the creepy crawlies. That's what Twitter feels like to me today. And so it's that, but without all of those things. And also sort of without these like weird features that they bolted on. The original Twitter. By the way, my username on Twitter is Dmitry. There's a lot of Dimitris in the world. And so I was a very early, we used to be known as tweeps. I was a very early tweep at Twitter. And I miss it. And so we're going to build a new one. Okay. And so it's super valuable. And I would argue this is like the most important part of what you need for being able to get started with vibe coding, is to have, a few sentences, even better, a couple of paragraphs of what it is you're trying to build. And kind of the more you can frame it for the system, the more it knows when it's kind of going out of bounds, right? And then you get further in. By the way, I checked it out. Chirper, that app is available. If we really like this thing, we won't have time to do it here. But by the way, my expectation is that you guys are going to get super excited about this. And I'm going to do probably 2 more sessions, I think, on this Chirper app after this. And we're going to just keep going down the thing, and we're going to deploy it, and we're going to add a bunch of features to it. And we're going to build and launch. And you guys are invited to be the first users of this new social media platform that we're all going to build together. So that's sort of my expectation here. And so we're going to call it chirper.app. It's going to be web, and it's that. Okay. So how are we going to do it? Well, so now we've got this PRD. And again, all I really said to Claude was, something along these lines. I mostly kind of wrote this. And it says, I got you. I know what you're looking for. I know what Twitter is like. You need user accounts. You need the ability to create and display content posts. You need a feed, right? You need the ability of following and followers, right? And you need to search. And so again, you could either write this yourself, or if you're building something that's similar to what's already existing, chances are these models have been trained on it, and you can simply tell them, I'm building something like this, and they'll help you create this document faster. You should still like edit it, but like you can get here really quickly. Like you could get here in like 5 minutes to do all of this. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm actually going to take this thing right here. I'm just going to copy this whole thing. And I'm going to go to my friend Replit. Again, so it used to be repl.it, but now it's replit.com. You need to log in, sign in. I just OAuth in with my Gmail. And then you get this interface here. And it's like, what do you want to build? Describe an app you want to build. By the way, as we go through it, we'll click on a bunch of these different buttons here, like apps. Like I've built a couple of other apps here. And you'll find them here, things that have been deployed, your usage, like how much money are you spending doing these things. By the way, this is probably important here. These systems charge you for spending time with them, let's say, for doing the work with them. And they've got, these plans on REPL. I'm on the $360 a year plan here, right? So $30 a month. And for that, you get some usage, $25 a monthly credit. And then beyond that, you have to pay for usage. And it depends on what you're using. One is like, down below here, once you've deployed things, you're paying for, how much data storage, how much data transfer, compute time, database storage, object storage, like all of these things. And while you're building it, you are paying, in this case, for two things. One is something called the Replit agent that we're about to use. And then it's, I guess it's sibling, you would call it, the assistant. And so this is like the older sibling and more capable, but periodically thinks that it knows more than than it actually does, makes a bunch of assumptions that you didn't want it to make, and throws a bunch of bloat into your system, and then you got to get it to revert back to where it was before. So that's the way I would describe agent. It's amazing, but watch out. And then there's this thing called assistant that's less amazing, but more coachable, I would say. And depending on which of these you choose to use, when you're either paying 25 cents per use. They charge for these things called a checkpoint. A checkpoint is like a bundle of work that it's done. And then it takes that and it saves that as a checkpoint. In the development world, there's something called Git. You guys may have heard of it, which is a version control system. Behind the scenes, this is actually Git that it's using, but it abstracts that and it calls it checkpoint. So you don't have to learn sort of the language of Git, which some people struggle with. And so if you're using agent, it's going to charge you a quarter, 25 cents USD for that. And if you're using assistant, there's actually two assistants. There's the free assistant, which uses one model, and then the paid assistant, which is 5 cents per commit here, basically, for the checkpoint. Okay, so anyway, let's go back to this thing. And you remember I just copied my PRD. And what I'm going to say here is this is a PRD for a product we are going to build. By the way, this is completely, well, this is somewhat important. A lot of people, when they prompt models, and there have been like articles written about this, speak with these models as if they're human. And so people are like polite with the models. They're like, could you please, and they type out, could you please do this? And this is not a good pattern to do that. One, you don't need to do it. Two, the model can't do much with that other than say you're a good human and being polite. But all of this actually costs money and sort of burns electricity and consumes natural resources. And so it's like an insane amount of like raw material, earth raw material that gets used by people being polite with models. And so I don't use the word please and don't say things like could you. But sometimes like it's hard to give instructions often without sort of feeling like you're speaking with something or someone. And I tend to like to do this by sort of treating them as a peer and that we're working together. And so we are going to do this. Let's do this next. Okay? You can use whatever pattern you want. Louis, I see you on
Dimitri, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. But I think your screen is a little bit pixelated and
I
it's
see.
hard we're not able to see what you're typing into.
Perfect. Let's do this another way. Thanks for telling me. Is this better?
Much better. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. This is a known issue with the way Zoom compresses things. Okay, awesome. See, problem solved. And so I wrote this as a PRD for a product we were going to build. Take this into consideration, and we will go step by step. And you could say if you wanted to, don't get ahead of yourself here if you want to play with it. Okay. And then I'm just going to paste this thing in. So like, again, I just pasted this thing in. There it is. And we're going to say start building. So this is the beginning of our waiting process. And so you guys ready? Here we go. The vast majority of the things you will be doing when you're vibe coding is waiting. And so I highly encourage you to have a second screen around where you can put this on like your secondary screen. And it's just like there. And so like you can do your work and do other things. And you don't have to wait for this. But you can see it when it completes. Like it needs to have like a sound, like a ding. That's the thing. So what is it going to do, first of all? So this is really good at like communicating with you. I'll analyze Chipper, cool. Modern web stack, okay, I get it. And you see it's going through things. Initial planning, plan approval, visual preview, and then starting to build the thing. And then it's asking me a question. It's saying, hey, that's cool that you put together this PRD, but like, would you like any fries with that? And the thing it's saying, do you want Postgres database integration with proper schema and relationships? Yes, I specified that. So do I want an email verification system? I do, but not now. Do I want enhanced search with hashtag support? Yes, I do. Thank you, but I'm not going to have that now. And do I want notifications? Yes, I do, but not now. And so I think generally try to not give it more work to do. It will take it. It'll propose that it does it, and it will do it. And again, couple of times where I've built things with this, it actually did a great job, but you can always add these things later. And I think that's a much better way of doing it. So I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to say, sure, do that. Yeah, I'll do that. And so now it's unblocked and it's going to continue doing it. So the next thing it's going to do is it's going to build basically like a mock-up of this, except it's not a mock-up, like it's an HTML. And so it's going to do this. Again, you can sit here and watch this. And if you're fascinated by like watching this HTML and CSS get built, you can do that. Or you can put it on a secondary screen and watch other things. Okay, while this is going, let me show you some of the things that are right here on the left-hand side. So all of this app that we're building is made out of code. And code is just, you know, a bunch of files in a file system here. And you'll see if you just sit here that as it goes through its thing, it's going to add folders and files to this area here. And that's what's going to be happening here. Okay. And then down here are kind of these little tabs here. And so this is the way you open up the agent. Ours is already opened. This is the preview, which again is already opened on the right-hand side. And then there's a bunch of other things that you can open. One's called a console. And again, all of this opens in tabs. You can also open the console, for example, in this way, and then just say console. In fact, you can open up multiple consoles if you want. Huh? Well, maybe this one doesn't allow you to open up multiple consoles. Typically, you could open up multiple consoles and things. But you can open up other things here that you can do with these things. So these tabs are going to be your friends. And not much to look at in the console right now. This thing is building, you're like, whoa, look at this thing. Like, it's already built stuff here for me. Like, it looks like it's got a feed, and it's got like a chirp button. That's cool. And it's got a counter. And, you know, it's going to build things and do it while you're doing it. As I mentioned, you know, full stack applications have a database. We can create our own database here by saying create database, but we told it to create a database for it. So sooner or later, we'll get to it, and it'll create the database for us automatically. Once we deploy things, you know, they're going to show up here in these deployments. When we deploy things with Replit, it gives us a number of ways to deploy things. You should choose auto scale unless you kind of want to do something else. You know what you're doing. The default is the right thing to choose here. And then there's sort of like these all tools. There's a bunch of these other things, right? Replit has something called Replit Auth, which is their own authentication system. We're not going to be using it. But if you choose that, then people will be able to use their Replit account to log into your system. Or if you're just building a product for yourself, this is great. You don't need user accounts. It's just your account. So you can just implement Replit auth. And so your application is secure, but it's using this thing. Databases we talked about. Applications, the vast majority of applications that are out there require storage of media of some sort, of files, of photos, of data, emails, whatever. And so typically you need what's known as a storage bucket. Okay, for example, kind of the most popular ones, Amazon has a thing called S3, and that's their storage bucket system. Replit has this object storage built in, and so you can just click on this, and so you can create a new bucket. We're going to do that later because we're going to want to store images that people are going to be able to upload to our system, and so we're going to create a bucket, and then those images are going to get stored in the bucket. By the way, look, see, we get more files here. We get folders and we get files. So we've got the client folder, and that's where our front end is going to be. We've got the server folder where our back end is going to be. And then we're going to get a bunch of these other configuration things that come with, depending on what stack you chose to build this in. Stack is what technologies are going to be used by your application. There's many different types of technologies and different types of stacks. We're using something called React.js. It's a front-end library. It's the most popular front-end library. There are many others, Angular, Svelte, many others. And then this white thing is a thing called a packager that sort of comes with it. This is super hip. It's not the one you may see called Webpack. Again, you don't need to know any of this stuff. I'm sharing it with you as like we're waiting for this thing to do something for us. See, still doing things. Tailwind is a CSS, a styling library that we're using. Really popular. It's awesome. I encourage you guys to use it. Again, especially if you're new, if you're amateur, I think Tailwind is definitely the way to go. And then there's like other things here where you store secret keys and what needs to be ignored and all that. You guys can Google all of this. If you start to get into it, like if you really want to learn to code, I actually think this is by far the best way to learn to code, which is to start doing this and then see what this thing is doing and then just like look at what it's building. And again, it's really good at being verbose. It's not doing it yet, but soon you will see as we're bug hunting through this thing, you'll see it's really verbose about like, oh, we should check this, and I'm going to go change that. And so this is a really powerful way to learn, if you want to learn the deeper concepts in coding. Okay, so let's keep going through this. This key value store, again, in programming, when you're building applications, oftentimes there's a need for sort of a lighter weight way of storing data. Typically, what's known as key value stores, and that's what this is. And then there's the agent, and then the assistant that we're going to use. Again, we could say plus here, and here we could open up the assistant. And so we can talk to the assistant, we can talk to the agent. There's nothing to say to them yet. They're still building stuff. Okay, and again, here we're not going to see anything. I'm going to close this object thing here. I'm going to close deployments. I'm going to keep console open. And so this thing is still going. And again, we can sort of watch this if we like watching grass grow, or we could do our work and do other things. Okay, what else is in here? Dependencies are, again, as we build modern applications, they almost always use other technologies that they need to import into the application. They leverage other libraries and frameworks. And if you leverage those become known as dependencies. Your application depends on those. And so depending on what your application is doing, there's going to be a bunch of dependencies in here. Git is that thing I told you about, the version control system. If you are technical, you can actually just use Git and use all your favorite Git commands, but most people aren't, and this thing has its own checkpoints, they call them, built in. Configure the ports of your application. When you deploy applications, sometimes you need to manipulate ports. In this case, we won't need to. Preview, which we're looking at here. Problems, view problems in your code, and so there's basically errors. applications, especially again, ones that leverage other third-party systems, APIs, for example, need to store what are known as secrets, which are typically like the API keys and the API secrets to be able to log into those applications. And typically this is done with what's called environment variables. And so you'll see a thing here called .env. But Replit has its own secret store. It's actually really cool because, again, these .env files are per application. But if you're building a bunch of applications, in this case, if you store the secret here, you can import it into these applications. You don't have to like look it up again and put it in. You still don't deploy it like this. You still deploy it with the environment variables, but this is an easy way to sort of like bookmark all your various secrets. So if any of you guys are holding any secrets, this thing is going to keep them safe. And then let's see what else is here. SSH and shell. So again, this is for more technical folks, the ability to remotely log into your system. And then we're not going to get into this here. I don't want to confuse you guys. Okay, cool. So we are still waiting for this thing to build. It's going to take a while. Sometimes it takes 10 minutes. Sometimes it takes 20 minutes. Now that you've seen this, let's not get stuck here. Let me entertain you a little bit while this thing is going. I'm going to put this right here on my other screen so I can
Actually,
keep it.
Dimitri, I think there's a
Uh-huh.
good question in the chat, which is
Okay,
like
perfect.
while Replit or whatever vibe coding tool that you're using is running, are there things that we should be thinking about as it's building or as it's being built, or is most of that stuff done in prep and you're just kind of waiting for it to finish that first iteration?
Yeah, again, you should do as much as possible before you ever, ask Replit to do anything. The more thinking you do and the more decisions you make, even again, working with some other AI model, like chatting back and forth with Claude or GPT or whatever, in refining your product requirements document, that's where you should spend the vast majority of your time and get that to where you're feeling like, yeah, that's what I want to build. And when you're there, then again, you're just sort of waiting around for it to do it. What should you be thinking about? You should be dreaming about the yacht you're going to build when your $1 million a day SaaS business gets launched and you're going to go on vacation, like the guy on YouTube promised you. You should be dreaming about that. Or go get a cup of coffee, or do your work, or open up another tab and start another one of these things, and another tab, and not you could be running 10 of them. Again, you got to make sure you got some coins to feed the machine in doing it. But like you can be building a bunch of these things simultaneously. I've seen people doing it. I guess I don't see anything wrong with it. If you've already prepped it and you've done the work in the PRD, sure, why not? Like do that too. There's nothing wrong with doing it. I'm really busy, and so I'm always multitasking. And so when I'm doing these things, I've got it on a second screen and I'm actually doing work, like MindStudio work. And that thing is just running. And when it says I'm done, I'm like, okay, let me get you to your next thing and I'll go back to doing work. Yeah, cool. But let's dream a little bit. So what this Chirper system, again, we can sort of look at it in this form. So you guys have all used Twitter, right? Does anybody not use Twitter? Can I get a raised hand? Nobody's like used Twitter or something like Twitter? No. By the way, folks that have joined late, if you want to turn on your cameras, feel free to do that. You don't have to. But if you do, I can sort of see your faces if I'm asking you things. And so we know what Twitter is. And so what today we're going to build, again, we'll see how long it takes this thing to build it and how long, how patient you guys are as we do this. By the way, it's done here with its first one. So I'm about to bring this back in screen share, but let me finish this thought. We're going to build a thing that's going to work. And we're going to be able to play with it, and we're going to be able to show it to other people, and we're going to be able to get our friends to come in and play with it. But there's a bunch of other things that we would want to sort of add to it and refine before we try to like launch it to the public. And like, for example, one of those things would be like moderation. Does everybody know what moderation is? Sort of monitoring what people are posting and making sure that people don't spam your system or people don't post a bunch of things that will drive away all of your users if they ever saw it. Whenever you sort of allow people to post things to a system, you wouldn't believe how crazy things get right away. And so before you launch any social service, you have to deal with moderation. And typically with moderation, it's like you got to hire somebody to do it because like a human's got to be an intelligent thing. Is this acceptable or is this not? Well, in the modern world, we don't have to have humans moderating anymore. I'm going to show you how to build an AI agent that we're going to connect to our application, and that agent is going to moderate things for us. And once we've added that, then we're safe to start to launch things to it. Okay, this thing is done. So let me share my screen again, and we will take a look at where we are. Okay. And so again, Replit does this. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Is that better? We've built, here you go. We've built user authentication. You can log in and register now. We've built the timeline of chirps from followed users. So it looks like we built following, although not necessarily true, but in fact, probably not true, but the timeline is there. We built user profiles that have a bio and follow functionality. Okay, so it is true. There you go. The ability to compose chirps and set a character limit of 280 characters. By the way, we could change that. We don't have to stick to that. The original Twitter was 128 characters. And it says, hey, can you navigate to this application and take a look at it? And so it's going to be in our preview here. And so here's our application in the preview. We can also take this and say new tab and spin it out in sort of a full screen, which is the way I like to do it. So this, we are now seeing the front end of our application. And of course, look what it's done. It says, hey, you're going to build a Twitter-like thing. Let's give it sort of the Twitter blue. And like, we're probably not going to keep this, but we'll get to design later. And look what it's built for us. It's got sort of login and register screens for registration, username, email address, password, display name optional. And once you've got that, you can log in with your username and thing. And then it even sort of gave us these things like, hey, connect with friends, world around you, share your thoughts, follow. Like it wrote this. I didn't write any of this stuff. It wrote that. Okay, let's try, because we got to test this out. Does this thing work? Let's test it out. And so I'm going to be Dmitry, and I'm going to say I'm Dmitry at MindStudio. And then I'm going to say that, sure, I'll use my suggested password here. I'm going to save that. And then my name is Dmitry. Oops. And we'll Command Z it. My name is Dmitry Shapiro. That's how I'm going to be seen. Okay. And now I'm going to say create account. This thing looks like it signed me in. And again, I can look over here. If I go back to here, I can see if I look at here, let's see, did it create a database? It has not created a database, so it said it logged me in, but it's storing this locally. So like it doesn't have a long-term storage for me yet. That it's done, but at least I can log into this thing and I can look at this. And it looks like I could type something here and I can chirp it. And it says chirp was posted. Maybe I'll refresh this and see, yep, chirp shows up here. And cool, so I can do that. And now, let's see, did it build a way for me to log out? User not found, so it hasn't built the profile yet, and so it hasn't built a way for me to log out yet. So I actually can't test log in because I'm in here. Okay, so this seems to be working. That's cool. And so I can say registration is working. Can't log out because control. Maybe it's built it, but it just put it in there. Or I might say, hey, I actually hit it here. And so it says, cool. And now it's thinking, and it's going to say, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to do that. Let me do that for you. And it's sort of like, on one hand, these systems, you can be very you can be very ambiguous with them, and you can be very minimalist, and they will fill in a bunch of blanks like an amazing developer. That I've worked with many different types of developers. Some developers will only do what you tell them to do, and that's all they're going to do. And so you have to be extremely verbose with them. You have to tell them exactly what you need, and then they'll do it. And that's amazing. But even better developers are ones that you don't have to say so many words to. And then they say, I know what decisions to make. I'm just going to make them. And that's what these systems are like. They're like those developers, which is amazing. That is wow, wow, wow. But on the other hand, periodically, like they'll forget to give you logout. It's like, great, you know. And so, okay, I see the issue with logout. Let me fix that. So it looks like it was an error. And so it says I've opened up this file right here. Again, so on here, see, it says client and then source, right? And then components. React uses these things called components. Everything's a little component. And there's a thing called sidebar here. See, and so we can navigate to these things, and then this index dot. And so here's the code that is written by the AI agent. It actually writes this code. Again, this is React. And again, on one hand, like you'd be like, whoa, this is scary looking. I don't know what this is. Some of these things you may not understand at all. But other things just feel like they're regular, sort of like if you lean into it a little bit, you're like, okay, I can sort of see this, like handle search. Okay, well, that's doing something, right? These class names here and these like things like MB6, this is that tailwind, these are these styling things, you know? And here's text, yes, search Chirper. Oh, I see. This is the thing that says search Chirper. And so this is the input field that's here. And so don't be afraid of like looking at these things and playing around with them. If you break them, the assistant or agent will fix them for you. Okay. And so it's again, mostly it's waiting and it's like doing stuff. Let's update the mobile navigation component, use the icon. Now, this thing you're seeing that agent does again versus assistant is I didn't say anything about like fixing the icon component or these other things. I just said, hey, I can't log out of this thing. And it says, oh, hold on, I'll fix that. Let me also get like these other things. And on one hand, that's awesome. And especially in these early areas where it's like, yeah, of course you should get that. Um, by the way, it's now restarting the server. Oftentimes depends on what it changes. It needs to restart this preview server that it's running that allows us to see these things. And so while it's restarting, both of these will be broken. Once it restarts, we'll be able to, this will refresh itself. We'll be able to refresh this and we'll be able to see it. Okay. And so it says, okay, I fixed this thing here. Can you try it again, basically? Okay, and so we're just going to go here. Let's see if it kept us logged in. Nope, log this out, just like we said. And then let me try to log in with this thing. And it says to us, oh, login failed, unauthorized, right? So at least it's doing error checking, but it's not letting me in. Let me try creating another one. And I'll say this is Dimitri 2, and I'll say Dimitri plus 2 at MindStudio. By the way, if you guys don't know this pattern, this is, again, it has nothing to do with this, but like emails work this way that you can say your email address plus something, and then that's another email address that points to the same thing. So you can make many email addresses like this. You could say Dmitry plus, and then the name of the service, and then you will know that that's the email address you used in the service that you're registering for. All right. And so I'm going to use this again and then say save. And then here I'm going to say, oops, yeah, this is weird. So it's got, I wonder if this is, if this is one password bug of some sort that's focusing that there. Okay, cool. So I've got this thing here now, and let's see if I click this, does this let me log out? Where did it put our log out button? So now it's got the Explorer already here. I don't think that was there. Last time it's got this weird thing for a button. Nope, this isn't clickable. And again, so you can go back here and you can say, let's see, improve sidebar layout. Where's the login button? And so you can ask this agent where that is, or again, in this case, you could say, go to assistant because it's cheaper. Where's the log out button? Did you guys see it? Did I miss it? Oh, now it's restarting the server. By the way, if you guys see things that I'm not seeing in this thing as it's doing it, let me know. Left sidebar at the bottom, I see. And so the sidebar wasn't opening, right? Let's see if we can log in Dimitri too. No, login's not working either. Okay, so before we do that, let's fix login. And so let's tell assistant login is not working. Getting, what's the error that it gave us? Unauthorized. Okay, and oftentimes it detects its own errors and goes off and fixes it. But many times this is what you end up doing. Again, by the way, all of this is going to get dramatically better, right? Like this is what all of these platforms are working on fixing. Where it's like, yeah, you could have detected this error yourself. So it's going to look at its console. It's going to say, okay, I know what's going on. And the difference between agent and assistant that I actually really like is that, again, assistant doesn't just go off and do things and therefore potentially build a bunch of things you didn't want or introduce a bunch of bugs. Here it says, hey, you can actually preview the code if you wanted to. And so you can preview the code changes that it's making to the different files here. If you don't know what this is, you're not going to do that. But at least it says, here's what I'm going to do. And then you can apply it. And then it says, okay, I'll go and do that now. And again, if you look at the console, you'll see it doing things. And by the way, here's that checkpoint made. And so later, if we want to go back, roll back to this, we can simply say undo changes, excuse me. Okay, let's try it now. Will it let me log in with this? Nope. Will it let me log in with this? Nope. Okay, and so now we get a different one, invalid username or password. And so again, you have to say, you don't have to be verbose. You could say invalid username or password. And this
Yeah,
thing knows you're
Dimitri.
saying there's an error. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, sorry to interrupt. Sometimes when it happens, it's kind of like it hallucinates the database. So maybe you can check if the user is actually in any database
Yeah,
right
well, I
now.
think it didn't make a database. Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. Like you need to ask it
Thank
to
you.
create the database.
Thank you, Giorgio. Always have Giorgio around too. Okay, so that's exactly what we should have done. Yeah, this thing isn't storing it. So I kind of answered it earlier and forgot that it wasn't storing it. And so I asked it to create a database. You remember it said, would you like fries with that? And do you want a database? And I said yes, but it didn't do it. But we can go here again to database and we can say create database. And then it's gonna create a database. Cool. And now I could say, use the database created to store user accounts. Okay, and it should know the schema already. And so it's going to be able to build the table and then, build the columns in it and do that. You have a database in the schema set up and storage implemented in memory storage, right? Okay, so that's not what we want. And so again, this is really cool that so I know all of these things, obviously, but if you don't, it would be super valuable to be able to read this and say, yeah, okay, there's this thing called in-memory storage, right? Which you can use as temporary storage, but once user leaves or you restart the server, it's gone. And then, sorry, not the server, but the client. And then to persist user account, let me create use this Postgres. It's the sort of brand type of this database called SQL. And then I'm going to do that. And then this is ORM is this. Databases used to be much harder than they are now. And now using these object relationship mapping systems, it makes it easier for us to sort of model databases and change them and over time. And so it's doing that. Okay, and so it says, great, I'm going to do that. We can say apply all. It's going to say, great. It says, I'm also going to need to install these dependencies over here, Postgres, and connect Postgres. These are these libraries, they're called, that it's going to import into dependencies. And then that's here. Okay. By the way, if you want to see a bunch of your dependencies here, you can find them in this node modules thing. These are all the dependencies that it's already using. There's a bunch of dependencies here, okay? Long list of things that it's included in this, okay? Okay, checkpoint made. And so now, again, if we go here, sorry, this is in database, we can get out of here. let's go ahead and try to create an account again. And so now I can use my regular account. We can just register. And we're going to say, because Dmitry doesn't exist, right? It wasn't stored. Dmitry at MindStudio.ai. And then we're going to use this password. And then, okay, cool. We can, seems like it fixed that thing. We can call this Dmitry Shapiro. And then create account. Okay, and now we're logged in. We should be able to see in our database. So that my data overview, where's my table? Where's our database? 0 tables. Okay, how does that work? This is vibe coding, guys. Like, it's great that we're having these issues. Some other times I've done it. It sort of showed up and most things worked, but sometimes it doesn't. And so you're like, okay, what's not working? Now, again, I know what it is to tell it to do here. But if you don't, that's okay. It doesn't matter. You don't even need to know that it's doing. You can just say stuff isn't working. And it says, okay, let me look at what's not working. Oh, I forgot to add a database. Okay, so I'm showing you kind of the more advanced version of like, oh, we can look at a database and all that. But you could just talk to the agent or talk to the assistant and say, it's not working. And it's going to say, what's not working? You say, well, the button isn't showing up. Or I log in, now I can't log in. You know, like these be worthless like error reporting, but these things are actually great at doing that. Okay, and again, maybe at this point I should be working with the agent because the agent kind of does more work in a single run than the assistant on this. But we're here on that. Okay. How's everyone doing, by the way? Let me pause here for a second while we're doing this, and let's stop here. Let's see if there are like any questions now, or if anybody wants to, you know, take a little break and get more coffee, or if you guys need a bio break. Like I'm open to pausing this for a couple of minutes and letting people do it. Would that be valuable? Are there any questions? Okay, I see. So yeah, so I'm going to be here. If you guys want to ask questions, the rest of you, if you want to take a bio break or get more coffee or whatever, please feel free and do that. And then I'll start sort of yapping in whatever, let's say 5 minutes. Yeah. In the meantime, if those of you that are going to stick around, if you have questions, please feel free and ask. Yeah, okay, I see hands raised. So Swati, do you want to go first?
Yes, hi, Dimitri. Thank you for the overview. This was very helpful. Question as I'm going through this, if you can help us understand how does Replit and MindStudio kind of work together? When does Replit end and where does MindStudio begin?
Yeah, thanks. So depending on what kinds of things you are building, you might use something like a Replit, again, or Lovable, or Bolt. There's like a bunch of systems. Or you might use something like a MindStudio, or there's another awesome platform out there called N8N, or Zapier, or Make.com. Is this sort of a breed of platforms that allow you to also create applications, but those applications are they're still applications. They feel like applications, but they sort of do different things. And so the types, when you would choose to use MindStudio is if you want to quickly build a tool for yourself to do something, like you do something repetitively, like your job is to every day, search Google and a bunch of databases for new developments in patents that are being filed. And that's like your job inside the company. And you have to like wake up every morning, get into work, get your cup of coffee, open up a bunch of tabs and start like typing in things and doing that. Well, you don't have to do that stuff anymore. You can quickly build, we call them AI agents. You can quickly build an agent. But when I say quickly, I mean like 5 minutes to less than an hour, 5 minutes to an hour, much faster than building anything with Replit. So in 5 minutes to an hour, you can build yourself an agent that can just run either with a push of a button or automatically and do that repetitive thing that you used to do, but it's just going to do that for you. In fact, there's a big company out there called Advanced Local. It's a 100-year-old company that journalists, they operate newspapers and digital properties. And so they now have over 100 MindStudio AI agents that are running that one person in the organization has built. And each one of those agents does some different things. One of those agents, every weekday morning, I think at 9 a.m., sort of spins up. It's on a schedule, so it's autonomous. And they have journalists that report on the legal industry, what's happening in court cases. And so it used to be that human journalists would need to spend about 3 hours of their day going and researching what was happening in legal news and then sort of writing about it. Well, now the AI agent does all the research. So journalists save 3 hours a day times all the journalists that were doing it. Because this guy, David Cohn, built an agent that does that. And that's one of over 100 agents that they've got running. So you wouldn't build something like that with Replit. That would be complete overkill to do that. You'd build that with MindStudio. Or His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, the British IRS, the British Tax Authority, uses MindStudio in recruiting. And so they're automating recruiting function, so like various things. So lots of reasons to use that. And if you're building other types of apps, you'd use something like a Replit. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Do we still have? Let's do one more question, yeah, and then people will get back and we'll jump into it. Or again, maybe I suspect everybody would benefit from these questions. So if you guys want to ask questions now, it's not a bad place to stop. Again, there's kind of more of the same that we're going to do. If you like hang out here with me, we're just going to do more of the same. We're going to say this ain't working. I don't like that. And then it's going to fix it, and we're going to get there over time. We're going to make a Twitter. And then, by the way, we're going to create MindStudio AI agents, and we're going to integrate them into our application. As I was saying, like Replit plus MindStudio. With Replit, we're going to build Twitter. With MindStudio, we're going to build agents that are going to moderate all of the content. We're going to build an agent that automatically tags things. When you allow humans to tag things, they come up with all kinds of weird tags and they spam tags and all that. You shouldn't allow any tags. Let the agent figure out what the tags are. So it's going to automatically do that. I'm going to make an agent I'm going to call it a bouncer. It's like a velvet rope agent. And before it allows you to create an account, it's going to ask you some questions. And if you answer them in ways that would reflect that you would be better off on Twitter, it's not even going to let you create an account. And we're going to make an agent that's going to be able to look at all our data and automatically generate dashboards for us. We're going to make lots of agents. But first, we're going to make the shell with Replit. By the way, creating all of those agents is going to be infinitely faster than what it's going to take to create the shell with Replit. But, we'll see if we get to it in this class, depending on how long this takes and how long we go. Or certainly I will hold another class for doing that, because, again, that's our day job. Okay, Sergio.
Hi, Dimitri. Thank you. I was just wondering, what is your experience with what traditionally would have like coding standards, documentation standards, software design architectures, UML kind of decisions, like how is your class diagram? All these things, these are implicitly decided, I suppose, by this agent. But what you can, I suppose, give some instructions, like it should be secure or it shouldn't harm humans, these kind of things.
Yeah.
I don't have really a very specific question, but what's your experience with this?
Yeah, thanks. It's a great question. My experience is that these systems already, and again, they're just getting better and better, like every day, but already are, I was going to say surprisingly, but I'm also not surprised these days that this stuff are really good at that. Like they understand that if you just slap a bunch of code in and it's sort of not well commented and it's poorly architected. Like they know best practices and they follow best practices. And you can absolutely ask them to follow best practices and like specific best practices. Like you can tell it, this is what I want, and they will do it. Like, again, these are just AI models. The vast majority of these are just front ends to like Claude, to Anthropic's Claude, which is kind of the most popular one now. You know, the new Gemini 2.5 Pro is a great coder also. So like some are starting to use that and other models. But you could actually go directly to Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT or any of these things and ask them like, what should be my best practices? And they'll sort of talk it out and you'll be like, yeah, I like that. And then sort of take that and then bring that into Replit and say, do it like this. The other thing that's really, again, for someone who's worked in software for such a long time, another huge unlock of this is, you see, Louis is amazing in so many ways. And so it's hard to pick like favorites of ways, but certainly one of my favorites is his ability to not get offended when I ask him to like redo things, or not say, well, I did all this work and now you want me to redo it. And so therefore I feel bad about asking him to redo it. And we just keep slopping on stuff. That would be bad. See, but most developers that I've worked with are like that. And so, and ChatGPT or Claude or any of these other things are not like that. They're extraordinarily patient in doing that and refining, and that's a huge, extraordinarily unique value to find in human developers. But here they have this in spades. Yeah. Any other questions for now?
I see Anasir has his hand raised.
Oh, so I'm not seeing that. Hey, Anasir.
Hi, Dimitri. Very nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
And very exciting, really, really exciting. You took this topic to the community, and I'm really humbled to be here. And before I joined you, I spoke to NHS about some amazing program they are struggling with. So, by the way, I'm from London. So this is super valuable. You know, we are seeing every single code we are generating, what is going to happen, how it relates to the front end and back end, and how we are using in a server as well. So it's super exciting. And I'm really, really excited that you brought this in. And product manager, honestly, and you gave the example, Claude and Luis, you know, it's super amazing. I really love that. So what I'm thinking, I just wanted to give them a complete solution. And I know now what is MindStudio does. What can I build? What can I give? A little bit of hallucination, it comes often. So we need to fine tune that. Deep search, I did it, a couple of them. The picture is not coming up really good shape, and some of the pixels are missing, you know, like a little bit of word spelling as well. so we can bear with that. We can do that things. But now the Replit, we are doing the backend and front end and integrating to the server with GCP or AWS, I believe we can choose, right? So this is my question. So deployment, we can choose ourselves, or we have to, yeah.
Yeah, you can deploy this. There's just regular code, front end and back end code packaged. You can export it and do your own deployment.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do our own deployment here. We're going to use Replit to deploy this. And that's one of the great things about Replit is like you can push a button and things get deployed. Oftentimes, like that's the place where the vast majority of people struggle. Like they could follow some YouTube tutorial about like writing the code, and then they're like got this code bundle, but they can't deploy it because that's a whole other specialty called DevOps. Replit has, that's one of the good things about it, sort of like the full stack is built in, so you just push a button. But yeah, if you wanted to deploy it on some other infrastructure, you can absolutely do it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you know the Her Majesty, His Majesty's HMRC and the National Health Services is bit you know that their core onto their own on-premise or anything which is compatible with the European way. So we have to do that way. So yeah, I'm going to be asking your team to help me out with these things. Yeah. Thank you.
Sounds
so much.
good. Yeah, good to see you again. Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
by the way, so I do a bunch of these classes. You can find them on YouTube. Previous sessions about different topics, mostly on the like building AI agents rather than this is my first vibe coding class that you guys are cohorts in. And so if you get curious about those, feel free and find them on our YouTube channel. And I love seeing people come to, multiple classes or all the classes. I think you've been in probably all the classes. And so it's always good to see
it's my privilege.
familiar faces. So thanks for being
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions here? Is I here?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Let's see. So
you look very gray.
I'm trying to switch
That's
to,
okay.
come on. My camera is stuck now. My question really is that want to build a web or mobile app that leverages one of these LLMs on the back end, and then we want to have that interaction going and then leverage their capability to design or reformat the output to your app on the front end, right? So it is something new to this domain. It's kind of an understanding the security, usage, gatekeeping, that no one really misuses it. So you don't kind of, just suddenly you're spending too much dollars, when accessing these LLM on the back end. What are some precautions that, as someone who is new to this, right, and they're not really understanding the security or networking and the controlling and all good. So how can a tool like this can help build something like that, and then we can actually go and then read through the code and try to understand that, okay, this is where all the security measures are putting in place.
Yeah, so let's separate this. So if you are building AI, we call them AI-powered applications, kind of like what you're saying. It's like you're going to use the model is going to do the processing for you of something that the user is going to do, and it's going to reformat some. So you've built an application that allows a user to say something or upload an image or something like that, and then it's going to format it in some way. And then you're asking, what's the security that you need to think about in doing that? Is that right?
Security and also, controlling usage, right?
Yeah.
It's just,
So that's called authentication. So you want to make sure that users need to log in, and you can then, prevent them from using your system if you don't want them to use it, or if they're abusing it, or they're logged in and you give them a certain amount of usage to do it. So again, all of this is really straightforward. It has nothing to do with sort of specifically Replit or MindStudio, but that's just a standard pattern of building these applications in doing it. When you build them with something like a Replit agent here, it will take that into account. It's pretty good at understanding sort of severe vulnerabilities of this, and then you can always have it take another look in doing it. At this moment, certainly for this class, I wouldn't worry about any of that. Imagine that the security stuff is handled for you, and that you don't need to worry about it yet.
But you can ask it to build test cases to kind of, capture all those corner cases and then run those.
You can.
Okay.
Yeah. Would it be, so a couple of things we can do. One is I can reshare my screen, and we can continue to nudge Replit to build the rest of this stuff for us. Alternatively, if you guys want, we could take a detour, and we could spend, 15 minutes, and I could show you how to quickly build some AI agents, if that's of interest to you, rather than this. So I don't know what the best way is to get that. Does anybody, maybe in chat, can we say, do you want to do more of this Replit stuff now, or do you want to take a detour, get kind of no more than 15 minutes on that? Totally up to you.
Majority's saying detour to
Detour.
MindStudio.
Okay. I was, yeah. And so again, so hopefully my like entry here warned you guys what this is like. Where people are like, oh, I just typed in a thing and I got an app in 60 seconds. No, they didn't. They just wanted you to click on the video. It gave them something and said, here you go. But it's not an app like this, certainly, that runs. So yeah, let's do a detour. Because I don't want you guys to leave here without saying, oh, actually, I can go and build something like now, the next hour, because this can take you a while. Okay, so let's do this. Let me quickly share my screen again. And then we'll take a detour. So MindStudio, again, this is our day job. This is the company that we run. It allows you to build these things we call AI agents. You can read about how you build them here. It's really straightforward. We have this thing called an agent store where you can find agents that have been built. These are agents that we've built that you can just start using. And there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of things for doing research. There's a bunch of things for analyzing content and for creating content and repurposing content, to take any content and turn it into a tweet storm or a LinkedIn post, or create an Instagram carousel, or things for doing, B2B marketing, like taking a transcript of a webinar and turning it into blog posts or social posts. Or actually on Monday, we're going to do a masterclass just on these things right here, these like business development agents that we have. These are like extraordinarily powerful. They were built for our own biz dev, a team of biz dev. Her name is Danielle. I think she might be here. So she does biz dev here. She's also the one that built these agents. Danielle is not a developer. She's a biz dev person. She's much more than that, but she's pretending to be a biz dev person. One of the hats she wears. She's certainly not a developer, but she built these. They're amazing. Okay, so like you can find them here. By the way, most of the time these things are used via a browser extension. And so when you install the browser extension, you get this little button over here. You can move it around. You can also pin things to it, and so you can have things that you use commonly, here. Or the dominant case is you open this up, and it loads that same agent store that I was just showing you, and then we can run agents from here. So here's an article, right, like a long article about the new Pope, and I could simply run this TLDR agent. And simply by clicking that button, it's grabbed all of the text on this page, and then, within a couple of seconds, created for me this summary. And also extracted like the people and entities that are mentioned in that. So you can do it on that. It also works on other things, like it works on YouTube videos, for example. And so we can, let me mute this. There you go, cursor full guide. And so let's look at the guy named Lex Friedman. He likes to talk. And here's, a 3-hour conversation about black holes. And so, by the way, I love listening to like these long podcasts, but I don't have any time. And so like, even if you do it 2 times speed, that's going to take you an hour and a half. But instead of doing that, I can simply, again, push this button or push this button, which gives me a longer summary. And this too is going to grab all of the content off this page. Actually, what it grabs is not the content of the page. It knows how to find this transcript that's over here, this transcript for this 3-hour thing. And it's grabbed that, and now it's running, and it's processing that transcript, and then it's going to create a really sophisticated executive summary for us. So again, you guys can you can install this extension, and you can play around with these agents. You can just use these agents that we've made. And so this is what it created. It created this thing. See, it's still creating it. It's streaming it in. It's going to create this really awesome, by the way, artifact. And so you can take this thing, you can share it. That lives on the web. Right now it's private, but you can make it either, hidden or public. And then you have this like executive summary. So you can read through these things. Like you wouldn't read the transcript, but this executive summary is really, really powerful. Okay, so that's an agent, some examples of agents. And so you can run these agents directly from here. Well, let's show you like this deep research agent. You can click on this thing and there's a run button. Most of the agents in our agent store are completely free to run. Some agents, and they're clearly marked, actually cost money to run. This agent takes an average 20 minutes to finish running, and on average costs 2.5 USD. But to run it, you just say run, and then it says, what do you want to research? And then also it says to you, would you like a podcast to go with that? After I do my research, do you also want me to create for you an up to a 10-minute podcast where it's a conversational podcast of two synthetic podcasters talking about the research, okay? So it's crazy. You can also see things that have already been created with this and then made public, and therefore they show up here. And so like you can go through these things and see, and click on them. So like, let's just pick this one, mastering letters of credit. So somebody ran this deep research, and this is the output of it. By the way, I want to show you here on the right-hand side. Look at my scrubber here. I'm just going to go quickly through this thing here. It's like this giant thing. It says at the bottom, by the way, if you scroll up here, it will estimate. This is a 52-minute read that it created for you. And so it created this summary, these takeaways. It went and it, so sorry, what does this thing do? How did it get this? What is deep research even? I actually did a whole masterclass on deep research. You can find it on YouTube on our channel. I see Haley excited there. Thank you, Haley. And then what does this thing do? Well, when you ask it to do deep research, when you type something into this run thing and you say research whatever this thing was, letters of credit, it says great. And what it does is instead of answering the question for you, it goes and it creates a bunch of Google search queries. Like it's a master of creating Google search queries, like a really smart Google search queries using Google search operators called Google dorks. And so just like a researcher, it says, how would I go about finding the content on the web with legitimate sources? Where would I find the information I would need in order to answer the question? So it creates a plan. It then goes and executes all of those search queries, gets all the search results, and then follows all those search results and gets all the data from the services, analyzes all that data. Here are these citations that are included all over the place. If it sees numeric data, like it pulls out like, interesting things that it finds interesting. If it sees numeric data, it will create charts and graphs. So this was generated by the agent because it saw numeric data. It goes and it uses Google image search and it picks images from Google image search to put in here. Okay, and I think Anasur was saying earlier that some of the images, like maybe a deep researcher ran, it may have picked the wrong image. That can happen too periodically. You should keep an eye on that. But I've been extraordinarily impressed of how well it does that. And then if you go all the way to the bottom, these are all the sources. These are all the sources. And again, you can click on them and you can go to this and it tells you exactly what it pulled out from all the sources of this thing. So this is like imagine if you had a human, if you had a Louis, and you say, Louis, go do this research. How long it would take Louis to do this research? Well, weeks, and the poor guy's head would explode. He'd never speak to me again. But now it costs me $2.50 and I have to wait 20 minutes to do this research. It's incredible. It's a game changer, right? This capability has never, ever, ever existed. It's as big as the ability to search for things. Like Google gave us all the data. This thing lets us finally leverage all that data because humans can't do the work, but AI agents can do the work. The data exists. You just need the agent to go leverage the data. That's what this is. It's profound. That's why I did an entire masterclass just on this researcher and other researchers, and you can find that. Goodbye, SEO. I saw that. Indeed. Okay, but that's not what I wanted to show you. And in fact, I don't want to take too much of your time unless you guys want to stay on this. Let me quickly show you how to build one of these things. Like, let's build one in 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Okay, so I just said build. So these AI agents are made of these things called workflows. You can have many workflows. We're just going to make one. And we're going to call this agent, we're just going to make that TLDR agent. I want to show you how easy it is to make something like that. Now, so I just clicked on that and I just changed its name. I can give it an icon there's many other things I can do. And then here, so workflows have a start, have an end, and then you can add blocks to them using this. We've got many different types of blocks you can add in these agents that do all kinds of things in here, okay? We'll come back to this. These agents can be triggered, it's called, in a number of ways. One way is on demand, so like a human triggers it. Another way is they can run scheduled, like I was telling you that one is running and doing research for court cases. But the one we're going to say is browser extension. You can also make them email triggered, so you can like send them an email. Like you could be in your email thread with somebody, and you could have an agent that you could just CC, and that agent can then jump in and analyze that thing and summarize it and email you or take over or whatever. You can do that. Or you can do these things called webhooks. There's sort of API type things. But we're just going to say browser extension. And when you say that, it says, great. When this agent is triggered by the browser extension is going to send this agent a whole bunch of data from the web page on which it's on. It's going to send it the URL. It's going to send it the metadata. It's going to send it all the content on the page. It's going to send it, if the user is selecting anything on the page, it's going to send that. It's going to send all the raw HTML. Okay, and so cool, we got that. That was pretty easy. And now we're going to say plus, and we're going to say generate text. Another name for this would be call an AI model. And so here we can say extract, all salient points, or you can say make a TLDR, or you can say summarize it. It doesn't matter. And here in double curly braces is how we reference variable. We're going to reference this page content variable. So page content is what comes to us when we click that little button over here, right on the Chrome extension, when we choose TLDR on the sole TLDR that we have. When we click this button, this extension sends to that TLDR agent, the old TLDR agent that somebody else built. It sends the content, and it comes in a variable called page content. Okay, cool. So now, and here we can choose what model. And so we support over 90 models from all the major providers, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Meta, Mistral, blah, 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 blah. More added every week. I'm just going to leave this at what it is, but if you want to use a different model, you just say use. Okay, and that's it. We're actually done. We just made this TLDR agent. That's all it took, was one block. And this thing, extract all salient points. And now I can just say publish. And so now we've published this thing. And we can either open it up right here. Again, it's just a permalink. It's a web application. We didn't have to write any code. It wrote it. We can do that. Or a better, of course, way of doing it is to simply click on our little button. And over here, my agents, these are the agents I've built. I can just say run. And so we just built that TLDR thing that's grabbing this giant transcript of this like 3-hour video and sending the message to the model, and then is going to extract all the salient points of this thing, and we're going to get that. That's how easy it is to build those agents. It also works, for example, on PDFs. So text, PDFs, images, whatever. And so now, isn't this like much faster to be able to consume something like this than by watching this 3-hour video? Yes, it is. And so again, I'm not going to teach you guys all of that stuff here. I've done multiple master classes on this. You can find them. You can learn to use MindStudio. It's dramatically different than Replit, as you can see. You're building these workflows by adding all these different blocks. So one last thing I want to show you here. If you go to our agent store, all of the agents that are in our agent store, like this YouTube to executive summary one, you can either run it, again, for free in this case, or you can click these little buttons right here, and then you can say, make a copy. And so you can just make a copy of that agent, and then you can look at how the person that made it configured it. And like if you click here, you can open it up in a big thing. And so they wrote this. And so you can learn from other people, and then you can just publish this copy, like modify it in some way and publish it. And so think of these, all of the agents in our agent store as being templates that you can just make a copy of and then modify. Let's look at this deep researcher. And this is the last thing I'll show you on this before I take questions. Let's make a copy of this. So we made one that has one block and one workflow. But as you can see, this one's got a bunch of workflows. And this is the main workflow. And this one has more than one block. And so let's quickly go through this and see what this thing is doing, okay? It starts here. And the first thing it uses is a logic block. And the logic block, again, is configured. It says, if the user's request, you remember what they typed and they want to research. If the user's request is not gibberish. What is gibberish? Well, the agents know, like, this is stupid. Don't ask for deep research on this. Like, a lot of people like flirt with these things. And so if it's flirting, it's like, no, I'm not going to flirt with you. See, it appears to be valid search query prompt research. If it's not that, then give them a message if it's an invalid request and come back. But if it passes this, then go on ahead and do that. And then it says, listen, humans are really bad at articulating what they want. So maybe I'm going to call, not maybe, I am going to call an AI model, in this case 3.7 Sonnet, and we're going to say to it, using the provided user request, expand and enrich the request into a prompt that can be sent to a researcher. Resolve any ambiguity, disambiguate as best possible, try to read between the lines, understand what user really wants. Remember the current date is this. This is good practice to put this in because these models are brilliant, but they oftentimes mistake what date it is. And so if you tell them, oh, let me just help you out. Today is this date, that's helpful. And then again, the user request that was collected in this page here, right, that we saw when you run this researcher, you get this form. By the way, this form too is built inside of MindStudio using these things called user inputs. So you can easily build these forms, but that's what that thing is doing. Sorry, let me close some of these things here so I don't get confused. Okay, and so then it calls this model and says, here's the user's request, make it better. And then it stores the output of the model in a variable called request. And then it goes on to the next thing. And the next one is also called a model. And this one says, analyze the request and create a research plan on how to best leverage Google search in order to fulfill the user's request. Think about what questions you might ask, what type of sources, blah, blah, blah. And it says, here's the user's request. And then it creates a variable called plan. And then it uses a different type of a block. Again, when you hit plus here and say view all blocks, we have many different types of blocks for doing, like fetching YouTube captions, or scraping Instagram posts, or searching YouTube, or creating X posts, or connecting to Google Docs, or finding email addresses of people on the web, or integrating this with systems like N8N or Zapier or Make. We're frequently integrated with these systems where people use those systems to create triggers and use us to create the intelligence components. This one is a really cool one. This one basically says, here's the research plan. Remember, it was created here. And here's the user's original request. Here's the current date. And it says the provided research plan is a first draft based on the user's request. The user hasn't seen it yet. Before showing it to the user, learn more about exactly what the user is looking for. So this is a disambiguation block. It's called user context. And so what this thing does is it takes the plan, the user's request says, there could be a bunch of other questions that I could ask the user. And here you specify how deep you want this thing to go in its questioning and what's the limit of the number of questions it could ask. If you wanted to, you could go up to 100. I don't recommend that. I think your users wouldn't put up with that. Or if you're making it for yourself, you wouldn't put up with it. But you can do that. And then it saves that to a thing called user notes. And then it continues, and then it starts to do the research. And then it uses another generate text block, and it creates a research plan, a broad user research plan, stores it in this format called JSON. So it's a structured format that's a standard. And then this pink one is another type of block, which is a run workflow block. And so this says, go and run this other workflow called research query, run query. Here it is. And that has its own flow. And so for each one of these queries that it created here, these Google search queries, it's going to run this other flow over and over again, get all the data, bring it back, normalize it, then create a deep research plan, run all those queries, get all the data, normalize it, compile the report, and then create the title. And then in parallel, you can choose in parallel or sequential. It's going to get all the source images from, that's another workflow that it's going to run. It's going to create the podcast, two people speaking with one another. They introduce themselves as like, whatever, here's the names they've created. They say, we're not real people, but the data we're talking about is real. And you can sit there and listen to them. It's really compelling. It's going to create all the visualizations, all the charts and graphs. It's going to create the cover image that it generates automatically. It's going to format the report. And that's what this thing does. That's how you got, that crazy output that I showed you that comes from this deep researcher. All of these things here. That's how you get these things here that show up. Yeah? Okay, I'm going to pause here for a moment. So hopefully that was valuable, a bit of a dichotomy, excuse me, between vibe coding. Like this isn't vibe coding. When you use MindStudio to create these workflows, like I wouldn't call that vibe coding. It's no code. You didn't have to write any code. You put those things on the canvas and you connected them together. It's easy to do. We've taught thousands of people to do it now, so you can do that. But you build different types of things with it. You would never, or you should never, try to build a deep researcher using Replit. That wouldn't make sense. Or you should not try to build the AI agent we're going to build. It's the moderation agent using Replit. But if you wanted to build some kind of an application that wasn't intelligent, but like the old world applications, the prior world application before the new modern world we live in. So that's like AI assisted application development. That's what Replit is. That's what vibe coding is. The AI helps you write the code. Here, that you tell the AI what work it needs to do and the AI does the work. The AI doesn't write any code for you. It executes instructions and in ambiguity. So it can work in extreme ambiguity. Like that's the big unlock. It used to be like automation and macros. Many of you have used macros before, I suspect. So like these are sort of like modern day giga sophisticated macros. With macros, things had to be extremely precise. You had to like enumerate all of the edge cases. With MindStudio, with these AI agents, you can be extraordinarily fuzzy and they can work. And that's why you can build these things so quickly also, because you don't have to enumerate all the cases. Does that make sense? Hands? No? Down? No? Okay, I see Anne, and then after that, Michael.
Hi guys, from a very sunny UK, sitting out drinking wine, and I'm quite a regular and a big fan. We've been building agents in MindStudio, but a lot of them require a form, and I know that you've introduced the new upgrade which allows you to have 3 agents. That's nowhere near enough for us.
I'm sorry, they require a what?
Pardon?
You said they require, a lot of them require a who? I didn't understand.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of the agents, we require the user to add a file or add some information.
Oh, file. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I've been doing this week is I've been using Lovable. I didn't know about Replit, so that was really, really useful to build a prototype shopping marketplace for all of the agents we want to build, with the view of having a form in Go High Level, which is embedded, and then having a webhook. So I've got 2 sort of queries really. Is there any way that you can upgrade your package so that we can have more than 15 embedded forms, embedded apps, or am I better off just using my forms in Go High Level, which is like a CRM system, embedding that within the back end of my shopping cart microsite that I've built using Lovable? But I'm going to quickly revert over to what you've been doing today, because it hasn't got any of the back-end functionality, and then using a webhook within MindStudio to go and get the data from the form. What would be your recommended way of doing that?
While today our pricing says that there's a limit of 3, that's actually not accurate. Meaning we intentionally put that there because at this moment we didn't want people going beyond that, but we're about to unlock that. And so you'll have unlimited embedded agents. There's an additional fee that's going to be there for embedding agents per agent, but it's unlimited.
So I guess what I'm saying is for me, the advantage of doing it with an embedded form is that goes into my CRM system, so I can then track usage, and then I can bill them for it, or I can email them and market to them, because obviously that's what we do for a living. But I do like the idea of just having an embedded agent and making that after they've gone through the shopping cart, having the embedded agent on the landing page. So it's great to hear that you've done that. And for people that have not done any vibe coding, there is really a hierarchy of functionality. So Lovable gets you something pretty, Bolt gets you something functional, but it looks to me from what you guys are doing is I was using it as a prototyping tool, and I was going to give it to my developer to put in the back end of WordPress. But actually, it seems to be quite a big jump in technology when you go, or functionality when you go from Bolt to Replit.
Yeah, you're spot on.
Is that what you found?
It is, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so I hope that's useful for people, because I mean, we're obviously trying to integrate our front end with what you guys are doing. But also we are playing around with the vibe coding aspect as well, and I've spent hours, and I must admit my approach to this is to save it as you go along by deploying it, because it does screw it up quite a lot. You know, you say, can you add this functionality, and it screws up with what was perfect 5 minutes ago. So I tend to deploy I deploy as I go along, so that I've effectively got a saved copy. So that would be my recommendation for anybody going for the first time.
Well, yeah, deploying works, but like all the history is kept in Git in these like checkpoints. I think
Yeah, you can go back and revert, can't you?
Yeah, so you can revert. Yeah, but this is a problem that happens. Yeah,
Thank you.
Anne, good to see you again. Anne is certainly a power user of MindStudio and is a wizard of doing it. So like we're
learning.
She's the one of the test pilots. That's awesome.
There's some bits that are working really, really well that you don't get. One of the other, if any of you have not used MindStudio, one of the really massive advantages is the RAG that's built in within MindStudio, and also the use of variables. So it's got some really good features that we don't have in other platforms. But we are finding that we're needing to go off to N8N and for stuff that we've built elsewhere. So we're finding we're using it as almost a hybrid, and it becomes a really good middleware, because if you've got like a shop front of what you're doing, and then you've got N8N behind the back for some really complicated stuff, you group all that together, you get what I would say the best of all worlds, really. So that's how we're finding that we're going to be using it.
Amazing. Spot on. By the way, again, if you guys want to get more of Anne's insights, which are awesome, she's recorded in some of our master classes before too. and so watch those. There's lots of good value there. Cool.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Anne. Michael?
Yes, I was listening to Anne's comments there, so hopefully my thoughts translate back into my question. My question, I was thinking about the Replit and the PRD process, where that was done within the LLM as a precursor to starting the Replit process. As you were reviewing the deep research agent workflow, I was wondering, is there a best practice in terms of kind of pre-planning the agent prior to starting to build out that workflow?
I certainly encourage that.
Okay.
You don't have to do it that way. In many ways in MindStudio, because it's so much easier, of like, which block should I take? And you're sort of like putting these Legos together, and like it's just so fast you can try it. I see a lot of people just saying, I'm just going to build an agent, right? It's like, let's put this block and put that. But I always find that it's good, and I do it all on paper. Like I like paper, and so like I plan it out, and then I go, and it's just much easier. Otherwise, I get like distracted by other blocks. I'm like, oh, I'll add this and I'll add that. But if you like plan it on paper, then you kind of know exactly what to go get. But you can do it either way.
No, that makes sense. So you can kind of structure your thought process in terms of how it might look, and then put your hands on the keyboard and start working with it. Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Listen, I think that's a great question, Michael. I can't. I never want to tell people what they should do. I'm kind of allergic to that word should, but I highly encourage people spending most of their time planning and less time doing versus the other way around. The other way around works too. And sometimes you get stuck and you like look at a piece of paper and you're like, I can't sort of get there. No problem. go and play and go and do it. And then periodically I'll do that and then I'll stop and I'll be like, okay, now I've got my paper creativity back. I started in MindStudio. Now I'm just going to go render the rest on paper and I'm going to come back or whatever. Yeah.
Makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. Thank
Great
you.
question. Thank you. Oops. Any other questions for now? Okay, so we are at 2 hours. It's getting a bit warm here in my place. I'm in Southern California, but I've got an air conditioner if I need to turn that on. Plus, it's always a lot of fun. Do you guys ever watch that show? I think it's called Hot Ones. Is that what's called Hot Ones, where they eat like spicy wings and have an interview? And then the spicier the wing, the better the conversation gets because they start sweating. I've got my own like sweat lodge in here, in my outdoor office. What should we do? We still have 100 people in here. Do you want me to take you back to Replit and we can work it? Or are there questions about that? Do you want me to show you some other agents you can build? Or tell you, we talk politics if you want. Probably not a good idea. Haley's like, no chance. I don't want to talk politics. But listen, misery loves company. And for all of the people outside of the United States, may I apologize to you from all of us.
Dmitry, if I may request, if it's possible, can we also see an integration between Replit and MindStudio, maybe connecting the agent?
Yeah, we would need to first get Replit into a state where the integration matters. So, Louis, actually, do you want to? I don't want to confuse folks here.
You do have the posting functionality working, so you might be able to use
It's
tagging
still
or
got a
something.
bunch of errors. Yeah, I think
Oh, I
that's
see.
really going to confuse people. Maybe
That
do
could be a
you
business
want to maybe Louis just did a video. It's on YouTube about the API. And so maybe do you want to do the 5-minute version of that, Louis? And maybe we'll do it like from N8N. But actually we actually don't have to do like the full integration. Just like show them the contours and then people can go off and watch it. Because again, we've got 95 people in here. And it's a great question, Swati. Thank you again. You can find it on YouTube. But maybe, Louis, you want to give us like the 5-minute version of like, here are these APIs and like, is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do I need to give you screen sharing or do you have that?
I think I should be able to screen share and I will go through. Luckily I have these tabs still open.
Amazing. Yeah,
So
perfect timing. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
going to grab a bit more coffee here, so I'll be back.
Yeah, so here, let me share my screen and we'll walk through the how you can integrate MindStudio with anything that accepts, an API, because you can trigger these workflows using an API. Let me know when you can all share or see my screen here. Oop, actually, it's been a while, and when you share your screen, I lose chat. So let me bring chat back up. 1 second.
We do see your screen.
Okay, great. Sorry. Thank you guys. Okay, so here I am inside of N8N, and I have an AI agent. Here, let me go to just a very simple workflow. And this AI agent takes in, it's basically for a lead generation form. It will take in inputs from the new lead. It will, based off of the system prompt, it understands our product. In this case, it's a fictional product called Flow Task. That's like a project management, tool. And it's going to take the information we bring in from a new lead, figure out that company's pain points, and then generate some sort of collateral to then reach out to that new prospective client. And we want to use this inside of our N8N workflow, which is where we've created our form, and we want to track all of this in Google Sheets as well. You could obviously do much more complex stuff, but this is simplified for the purposes of this demo. When you are wanting to use the API, there's a couple of prerequisites. And so what I recommend is you go to our documentation. And inside the documentation, you can find our N8N plus MindStudio docs here. You'll see that we need to find a few things, our agent ID, our API key, and we'll need to set up launch variables in our workflow. And we can quickly find our, well, you'll create the launch variables on your own inside of the start block here. These are just the variables that you plan on using inside of, can you all see my screen? Okay, I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see the configuration. But in this case, what I'm bringing in as launch variables is the data coming in from the client intake form. And so we set up all of these launch variables here. We can find our agent ID simply by going to this root folder, and the agent ID is here at the bottom. And then we can get our API key inside of, from the home page, you can go into this developer section, and there's a place called API keys here. I already have a key created, but you can create a key simply by clicking on this button and naming your, giving your key a name. And I recommend you keep these secret. You can see this is obfuscated, and you're going to be able to see this key, but please don't use it. I'm going to delete it right after this demo here. So inside of N8N, in order to, I already have this built out, so I'm going to just show you how it works because it's the 5-minute version of this. You're going to add a node called an HTTP request node. If you're familiar with using APIs, this should be very familiar, especially if you're used to using N8N. What we have inside of our docs, and I'll actually add, just create a new node just to show you kind of some shortcuts. I'm going to look for HTTP request. You're going to see this button called import curl. And inside of our documentation, we actually have a code snippet that you can copy directly in. So if you copy this and then import curl and paste this in, you can simply import it and it'll set up most of this for you. At that point, all you need to do is swap out your API key here where it says your API key. You can change specify body here in the body content to using JSON. And then we also have another snippet that you can copy in and paste in here. And then at that point, if we expand this using this little button here, you'll just fill in the rest of this information. So your agent ID, which we found, the launch variable name and the values. So the name is coming from your workflow, which is the launch variable, and the value is coming from the previous step in your N8N flow. So if I was to swap this info out, maybe I can zoom in just a little bit. If I was to swap this info out, I would go into my AI agent and I would copy the launch variable name and I would replace it here. And then for the value, I would simply delete this and then click and drag the value from the previous step in my workflow. And so that's going to make it super easy to pull in information from all the previous steps in your N8N workflow and use it inside of your MindStudio workflow for AI processing. And of course, you want to make sure that you have your workflow name. I called mine API, and the agent ID, which we talked about, is inside of this metadata section here. So we'll copy that in and paste it here. And when it's all complete, I'm going to quickly close this out because this is just the example one. But when it's all complete, you should see something that looks like this. And so here I have my worker ID, I have all of the variables in, and it'll show you kind of what that full thing looks like on the right-hand side as the result of this. And then when you run it, you can click on test step and it will run this workflow with the example form submission. So you click test step and it's going to start executing that AI agent. So you should be able to see in the debugger that a new run is working. Here, let me refresh this page. I think it's an old version. So you can see here it's running. And then when it's done, you'll get that response back inside of N8N. And so that in a nutshell is how you would go about using the API and triggering or integrating MindStudio inside of N8N.
Yeah, thanks, Louis.
Mhm.
Yeah, so there's your result that just came out there.
Yeah.
So the thing with API, again, it's a bit of an advanced subject. It's easy to learn now. Like you just need to know where to find your API key, and you need to know where to find your agent ID. And then with N8N, you need to fill in their forms of connecting it with Replit. Again, once we have, sounds like it's going to be in the future session, we're going to finish off the Chirper. And once we start integrating it, we won't even have to do that, fill out the form. We'll simply say to Replit, here is the API documentation for MindStudio. Here's my agent ID and my API key and secret, and then it will simply integrate it in. It's like really easy. It's even easier to integrate Replit with this than it is to integrate N8N with this. But the idea is the same. Like you need the agent ID, you need the API key.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can I just ask you a question, because I'm reasonably familiar with this and I sort of got a bit lost, and I'm sure there's people that have never seen any of this. So could you just explain the order, because for most people that haven't used get and post, they won't know the difference. So in this case, is the because I got a little bit confused because I've also had 2 glasses of wine. Is MindStudio pulling the data from from N8N, or is N8N pulling? So what is the order of the process? Just so you can just sort of explain to everybody else the sort of, if you're from an umbrella point of view, what is going on here?
Sure. Maybe a second voice. Let me try, Lily, and I'll add context to it. I'll
Sure.
paraphrase. Yeah. What Luis was showing is that he's got an application in N8N. You could just as easily replace that you've got some application in Replit. And that application needs some intelligence. And that intelligence is going to be provided by the MindStudio AI agent. In this case, the MindStudio AI agent generates these sales collaterals. And so the application is going to collect a bunch of data from some user and then is going to call, that's the term, you call an API, is going to call the MindStudio agent API and pass into it a number of variables. What's the company name or these other things, right? And this API is going to take those in. We call those launch variables. So you define the launch variables in the MindStudio agent that the API call is going to provide to it in that call, okay? And so it passes in these variables. The MindStudio agent runs and does something using AI and creates the collateral. And then the MindStudio agent, it's called returns back through the API to the calling side, which in this case was N8N, but it could have been Replit, returns back the result of what it processed. In this case, the materials, the collaterals. And so that's the delineation.
So if you use the terminology of get and post, MindStudio is getting the data from N8N, or N8N is posting it to MindStudio. So
yeah, but you
MindStudio is receiving the information, processing it, and then returning it back. In the same way, when I asked my question earlier on, can I create a form on a website with a Go High Level form where all that information is being collected by the user, so they're entering their so for example, you can use it for transcription. So if they load their transcription file, they explain what the meeting is, you then send it over to your amazing content processor over in MindStudio, and then you can send it back to the user. So this is really acting as the bridge between an app or N8N, and by using that API, you're effectively allowing MindStudio to be the brain behind the front end.
That's right. Except for one thing. There's only one thing that you said that wasn't accurate. All of that was spot on, and that's the important thing that you said there. That's it. But you said earlier the get and post. Those words are specific. Those are technology terms.
Okay.
This is the way kind of the web works. When you, for example, put something into the address bar in your browser, like you write google.com. Hopefully you don't have to write www, but you get the point. You write google.com and you push go. What happens is your browser sends, it's called a GET request. And it's a special type of a way that it sends the data to the server. It's called a GET request. It comes in what's called the query string. And so that's a GET request. A POST request is a similar type of thing, but it, for example, mostly happens from like when you have a form on a web page and you push the submit button. Typically that form uses what's called a POST request. And it's just a different type of a request. It sends these things called headers. And so like it's technical terms of art that are get and post. It has nothing to do with like, do you get something or do you post something? They're both the same thing. They're both ways to send data to something else, to a server in this case. And then the data
But the important part of what you're saying is that we can use the power of MindStudio and a lot of the amazing features that it has that even NAN doesn't have. And you can link that to a front end, which could be user facing, but you can also use it as a bridge to the back end of NAN, which does all this other stuff. So it can be a bridge in both directions, depending on specific applications. And in some cases, you can use it directly, but in other cases, you can have either a front or back end, and it becomes the bridge to all this extra functionality, which is what's unique about it, really.
Yeah, spot on. That's it. Well said. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was after 3 glasses of wine.
Listen, keep going. I'm doing a dry year. But I'm vicariously living through other people having cocktails, and so but bring them on. I love it. Zahir?
Just a quick question. I was working with the variables, and there's different scenarios. I'm getting that, I'm when I run it in debug, I see those the variable values, but the final display it is null or empty. So just curious that I was kind of trying to figure out, and there I ran that debug or in ran that run diagnostics, and then they was giving me some that do get operator like get dot, and also sometimes it says this dot. So just curious that when to use just a straight variable name versus get dot and then the variable name, and then so because I am trying to get to the values to get displayed, but right now I'm not able to.
Makes sense. Yeah, you're talking about the ability to reference variables that in structured data like JSON. We'll cover that in an upcoming class we're going to do. I hope to record actually. That's my intention to the world, is that this weekend I'm going to record some of those lessons, and I know that Luis is also planning to do things next week, so we'll have more materials. And so you're talking about sort of our advanced course, but
okay.
Yeah, straightforward to do. We'll be able to teach you. In the meantime, look at our documentation, work with ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, say, hey, I'm trying to do this. What should I do? And it says, oh, you've got the dot in the wrong place. Like, that's a good way to get your problem solved. Yeah, they'll do a better job than I will do here because I can't see your screen, but you can cut and paste things to them and they'll help you out. Like, it's straightforward, it's all standards. So you'll get it. Keep at it.
Okay.
Sergio?
Hi again. Thanks. So I was wondering, is it possible to export and import custom agents in MindStudio so I can have an LLM optimize the agent?
What do you mean import custom agents?
So when I built an agent in MindStudio, it would be great if I could export it and feed it into some LLM like Claude and say, okay, can you optimize this agent and import it back into MindStudio again?
How would it optimize it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what would it do? What would be the optimization that you'd be looking?
Well, maybe design the workflow for me,
I see.
for example.
Yeah, you can't really sort of export them, but like, again, you can do things like that. If your agent is showing screens and forms, we didn't cover that here, but you guys can see it in our other master classes. You can build basically front-end interfaces directly in MindStudio, screens and forms that, for humans to use when interacting with the agent. And so you can take those and you can simply take screenshots of those and say, this is my current flow. Again, give it to Claude and say, how would you change it? So like, you can do that. You can explain it in plain English. This is what my thing does. We even have a thing that generates automatically. Once you build your agent, you can automatically generate kind of the landing page for your agent. And so we have an agent that does that. And so you could take that landing page that was generated, and so it wrote out like what your agent does, and then give that to Claude and say, here's what my agent does. How would you do it? Like a bunch of ways you could do it. But yeah, you can't sort of like export the agent.
One more question is, some LLMs have like deep research or extended thinking options. Is that, do you support it in your agent that if you use a cloud or something that you can use this?
So MindStudio doesn't have any of our own models. We don't operate any models.
No.
We are an orchestration layer, it's called, on top of models. We support, again, all the major ones, etc. We connect to them via APIs. And when you build agents, those agents leverage our APIs to connect to the models. Different model providers often offer different capabilities in their APIs and how they treat it. And so that depends on that. I don't believe that any of the APIs offer their version of deep agents. But if you guys watch that deep agent masterclass on YouTube that I did, I actually point out that that they're, meaning, and I show Perplexity and ChatGPT and Gemini and MindStudio, so 4. That they're really all kind of the same thing, except ours is open sourced. And so you can make a copy of it and modify it to your heart's content. And so there's actually nothing that you would get, even if they did expose those things to you, from those that you wouldn't get simply by saying make a copy. And this would be much easier to deal with anyway. But I don't think like any of the APIs actually expose that.
So the advanced features dependent on the APIs then, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, play around with different models for different steps. As you go through each step in MindStudio and you call a model, try one model and try some other models. In fact, here, maybe let me quickly show you, take advantage of this so you guys can see it. We actually haven't covered this even in our basic and intermediate classes. It's not hard. It's really easy, in fact. But I'm going to say create new agent. We're just going to create a new agent. And so over here, I can again say generate text, and I can call a model, and I could say write a poem, right? And that's it. Like this is an agent here, and this is calling this model, and I can preview it, and I can say open draft agent, and it's just going to go and call that thing, and here's your poem. Generate random poem. Okay, if you can provide both. I apologize, I noticed you didn't provide specific context for theme for the poem. Okay, cool. So we could say write a poem about this. Okay. And here, look what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to say plus, and I'm going to say user input. Again, we're going to create a little form here. We're going to say create a new user input. And here you look on the right-hand side, you can create different types of forms. Long form, short form, multiple choice questions. You can add many here. You can have, image multiple choice. You can add many here, create grids of images, or rating forms, or upload files. You can ask people to upload a file in your thing, right? So here I'm just going to say, long text, sure. And I'm just going to call this topic, okay? And here I'm going to say, what should the poem be about? Okay, cool. And so now we created this thing. And so first thing we're going to do when we run this thing, open in draft, it's going to say, what should the poem be about? Oh, wow, I forgot to do one thing. So now we've got this variable, it's called topic. You remember we called it topic. The variable is called topic. And so now I'm going to go here and I'm going to say generate here. And then in double curly braces, I'm going to say topic. Okay. And so now when I run this thing in draft mode, and I can say love, like what else would you write a poem about? This thing is going to go, and so we got the instructions to write a poem about love. And it says, here's a poem about love. Now, in here, we use this model, Claude 3.5 Haiku. But as I said, we support many models. Would some other model have done a better job? Well, you could try it. You could say, let's give this to, GPT 4.0, right? Like everybody loves GPT 4.0. Let's give it to GPT 4.0, and let's go ahead and, run this draft agent and do it. So that's one way to do it. But in this case, a better way to do it is to go to this thing called Profiler. And here you can create these, look, these are columns. And so I can create another column and more columns. And here I can choose different models that I can compare against one another in real time for the same query. And so here I'm comparing 3.5 Haiku from Anthropic, Amazon's Nova Light, and GPT 4.0. And here I could say, write a poem about love, and say go. And we can watch all of them do it simultaneously. And we can see what it is that they're writing, how long the output is, how long it took them to write it, 2,400 milliseconds, how many tokens we used, meaning how much cost was there to do it. And so the Amazon one wrote the longest one. For time, this was 2,800 milliseconds, 4,500 milliseconds, 2,400. And we can look at this and say, oh, we like this one the best. Cool. Now we can go back here and change this to be whatever it is that we like the best on this. Does that make sense? Yeah, so this profiler is what I wanted to show you, is how you do it, but I also got to show you these user inputs. And so you can create forms, and you can stack more. You can create another one. So like, what's it about? And watch this. Like, let's get fancy. And we're going to call this one, I'm just going to do short text, and I'm going to say, I'll call this name one, and then who do you want mentioned? And this is sort of like one, and then we'll create another one here, and then we'll say plus, and we'll say create new. By the way, we could have captured it all in one variable. We could have said, just tell me the names of the people you want mentioned, but I just want to show you that you can create multiple ones here. And here again, I'm going to make this short text. I'm going to call this name two, and then here this is going to say who else. Okay, and so now we've got these two other variables. And so here, write a poem about, this topic, right? And so I can say, I could even get rid of this here because these are small. I can write a poem about this topic, and so it'll put that in. Or, sorry, I even can get rid of this if we wanted to. So it's going to say, write a poem about love. But it's good practice to do it the other way. And include these people. And here, again, I could say, double curly braces, name one, and double curly braces, name two. Okay? And so now, see, now we're getting fancy. We can go, and again, I'm publishing it here, or you could run it in the draft agent, and now you get a longer form. And so this is a poem about love across distance, and then, Romeo and Juliet. Huh? It's like Juliet, like that. And then this thing, does this. So it's like it's adding a bunch of garbage in here. I think I chose the wrong model.
No. Your temperature is all the way up.
Oh, that too. Yeah. So there are, if you go to these quick help sections, you can learn a bunch about these blocks. So we have a lot of good documentation of what to use there. And so that's one. Another one is GPT is awesome, but it's actually not a very good poet. But Claude is the poet in the family. And so if you want things written, in our experience, go with Claude if you want things analyzed. Actually, Claude does a great job of that too. But you can use GPT there. And so again, you can run that. That's how you deal with variables and all that and pass them through. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful. By the way, again, a lot of this stuff is covered in these other masterclasses that you can just go watch on your own. And it's there in our tutorials, and soon we'll be creating an entire course of this. But you don't have to wait for us. You can become a master this weekend and build these
Yeah.
things.
Dimitri, I had a question,
Uh-huh.
if there's enough time. So let's say I'm building an agent, or customizing an agent of what I need, and it's domain specific. Is there an option of choosing a model and having an option to fine tune or embed for that particular agent? So every time that agent would be called, the model that I've chosen, the fine tuned model will only come into play, and not for the other agents like that I have in MindStudio.
There's two ways to do it. You can add long-term storage to these agents. And so every time you run them, they remember some other instructions you gave them before without you fine-tuning any model. You can just pass that in behind the scenes in the system message, it's called. So like that's the right way to do mostly what you're talking about. There's also the ability, if you wanted to, for more advanced users, to call other models, not just the ones that we have. And so you may have fine-tuned a model and you want to call that, cool, you can do that too. That's just an API call. But I'm guessing what you're asking is better done, which is long-term storage.
So if you can just give some your thoughts around like fine tuning versus more context, like in the
It depends
because
on what you're trying to do. The vast majority of the time, you do not need to fine-tune any models.
yeah, because if I am using it as a product and then more and more customers start using it, then it goes beyond my context window, and then the model starts losing context, right?
Yeah, when
Fine.
you architect these agents, you build them in such a way that you never get even close to context windows of today's things. And so if you're getting past the context window, you're not doing it right. Just
Okay.
it's how to architect the thing. It's really straightforward. Yeah. The chances that any of you are ever going to need to actually fine tune a model are pretty much zero. 0 point something, but zero. Yeah.
So the architecture of that is where you need a techie, right? Non-techie is difficult to
No,
do
no,
that.
no. It's actually you don't. Thanks for asking that. When I mean by architecture, it sounds like it's techie, but as you can see in MindStudio, most things you build actually don't require any code. And so no, what I mean by architecture is like what blocks do you put where, and how do you break your system up in doing it? So like you can absolutely do that.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks a
Yeah,
lot.
go watch a bunch of our videos. We touch upon these things.
Sure.
Jason, was Jason next or Nick? I think Jason.
Thank you. And my camera's not working.
No
I
worries.
apologize, but that comparison platform you have with all the bad press that El Emerin has been getting, you might have some low-hanging fruit to draw people to your site just for comparing models. I was just wondering, for those of us who are non-technical, if you could kind of go through the difference between API, MCP, agent to agent, and even Carnegie Mellon's new background checker, and what do we need to know about those things, and how does it relate to these two platforms?
If you're asking, you don't need to know anything about them. Meaning, like those are advanced things that once you're ready to use them, you will be like, they're all pretty much the same thing. MCP is a standard that Anthropic sort of brought on the scene, which is just a way of models to talk to other models or third-party services. And so it's an API. It's sort of like a very opinionated API that's there. APIs work the same way. Webhooks work the same way. So meaning we live in a world today. Again, when I started writing code in the 80s and then all through the 90s and even like 2000, et cetera, it was hard to connect systems with one another, required a lot of work, a lot of integrations. And then over time, because we live in a world where all things need to be connected, every platform and every system that exists has APIs and can connect easily with other systems that have APIs. And it's really straightforward to do. You follow their documentation, or Replit can do it for you automatically as long as you provide it the documentation of the system and the API keys. Don't get sucked into that. Maybe that's another, I think, huge thing that I can impart on you guys here. I teased it a little bit in my opening to this class. There are lots of people who are professional content creators. And so their job is to get you to click on the video and to listen to them be experts and explain something to you and get you hyped up that, oh my God, I need MCP, for example, or I need this or I need that. Right? And while I love that. I love that we live in a world that everybody is teaching people to do things and inspiring people and all that's wonderful. On the other hand, like it just confuses everybody for no reason and makes you believe like you need any of these things. And that's why I said, if you're asking, don't worry about it. You probably don't need it. Figure out what it is you're trying to do. What do you want your agent to do? And then bring that up and then we'll say, oh, yeah, you need this thing here. This is the way to build it. You might need MCP. The chances that you need MCP, very, very low. Not zero, but close to zero. You might need to call an API, check. That API you call might be an MCP server. Check, cool, doesn't matter, easy. Don't worry about it. When you need it, you'll figure it out. For now, focus on what is the user experience for me or users I'm building it for? What does my agent do? Or what does my app do? If we're building it with Replit, what does it do? That's what I'm saying, the PRD. My PRD didn't mention anything about MCPs or anything like that. It's like, what does it do? How does it work? What is it supposed to do? Like, stick with that and you guys will be successful. Yeah, beware YouTube videos that claim that they're making all this money and they're going to teach you to do that too. As soon as I see that, I know that that's not true. Another one is like any new thing that they say, oh, you got to use this and this has like changed everything. Like enjoy it for what it is, but don't take it too seriously. Okay.
Dimitri, could you give a layman's explanation of how should we think about API versus MCP? Just like
you shouldn't. That's why I keep telling you. Lay persons should not be thinking about the difference between API and MCP any more that lay persons should be thinking the difference between Ethernet and token ring, which are networking technologies. These are not things for lay people to think about. But again, it's not hard. MCP there's a thing called an MCP client and an MCP server. An MCP server is something that exposes an API with a certain format that's a common format that everybody expects. It allows it, a calling client and the server can respond with a list of tools that it has and a list of resources. Those are the two things it has primarily, tools and resources. So it can say, this is what I can do. And this is kind of the data that I have access to, the things I have access to. And then it allows the client to request the use of a tool or the use of a resource. It's just an API. They're the same thing. MCP is a very opinionated type of an API.
Does it impact the latency by using one against the other?
It should not. Meaning the MCP wouldn't affect the latency. How the API is implemented might or might not, but they're not related. Yeah. The thing to remember out of those questions is you can connect everything with everything else. And that's amazing. That is profound, that you can connect things together in a fuzzy way because of this, because of generative AI. You can be fuzzy in the connection, meaning not precise, what I mean by fuzzy. And that's amazing. That's never existed before. And therefore, everything had APIs, but to connect APIs together was really hard before you could do fuzzy. But now, because you can do fuzzy, it becomes trivially easy to connect everything with itself and then to build these workflows, and you get crazy. Things that would have seemed science fiction just last year now are trivially easy for non-technical people to do. Nick?
Hi, Dmitry. I've been using MindStudio now since 2023, and it has changed quite a lot in terms of, the content, what's available on the website, the actual platform itself. One of the things that I have struggled with, though, is just kind of the roadmap and the releases. A typical example was embedding was taken away because I think it was deemed not to be secure. And then recently a new service has been rolled out where now embedding is secure, because I think you guys went away and found something much, much better. So I guess my question is, do you guys publish a roadmap of the things that, either that you have done in the past or that you're about to do? Because from my point of view, that'd be really helpful just to prepare almost sometimes.
Yeah, I understand. So we are about to start a section, which is a change log. So it's
okay, great.
Rear view mirror. So like you'll see the things that were done. It's really because of the dynamics of the space, and because the space is moving so quickly, we're sort of making decisions on a daily basis. And so it's hard actually to prepare long-term at all to then be able to articulate it to people where we're going to go, because that's going to depend a lot on where others went, like what new capabilities exist, right? Like it's not, I'm overstating it, that's like day by day, but it's kind of that. And therefore, it's like really hard to do any kind of big long-term planning on this. What you will see
even
generally,
if it's just a few months or anything like that. I guess from my point of view, I know you guys gave plenty of notice on the embedding feature. I just wasn't sure if like anything like that will happen again.
you should not expect things like that. Again, this was we were concerned. Everybody loved this type of an embed that we were offering, and it was made to be for internal embedding, but people started using it for external embedding, and we were concerned that it was just extraordinarily ill prepared for that, and didn't want people to get in trouble, our customers to get in trouble. And so we kind of have to say, hey, let's stop that. We'll get you a new form of doing it because you guys want to do that. Cool. This new form of the signed URL is the right way to do it. Now you can go to town doing it. I don't expect many of those kinds of situations to exist. But look, certainly you're not the first to request to have even more visibility of where we're going. And we'll keep, trying to do that. Now we're doing a lot more of these master classes. So you can always ask me, like, what's next? Like, I can tell you what's next. More blocks, more capabilities of blocks, right? More simplification of like making it even easier and faster to build these things. Better analytics, all kinds of things like that is where we're going.
No, that's great. I guess the only other feedback I have is these master classes are great, but I think it would be nice to have like different tiers of class. So, for instance, the class that you were in the other day, where Danielle, for instance, she was presenting. So, obviously yourself, you've been in the tech industry for a very long time, and you're used to a lot of the verbiage and the terminology. A lot of people in the room today maybe are not familiar with that, myself included. I'm not in the tech industry. I'm in a completely different sector. So I really like the low code, no code environment. So I guess my feedback would be just to have more of those sessions with people who come from the non-tech world. So that's kind of giving praise to Danielle or any other people you've got working for you like that.
I love it. Thank you. I agree. In fact, Danielle is doing another one next week. There, she said in the comments. Yeah, Danielle has a giant fan club. She's an extraordinary communicator, and so like I'm not surprised that you'd love to see more things that she does. And so we're encouraging that. So Danielle, she already wears a lot of hats. We're throwing more hats on Danielle, and certainly training is one. Yeah,
I've got some new gear getting set up for next week's session.
Amazing.
Oh, fantastic.
I've been complaining about Danielle needing a new microphone. Well done.
I just
I'll be
did
in high
the
def
same
next
thing.
week.
I did the same thing, Danielle. So you're not alone.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Bruce.
Thank you.
You're muted still, Bruce, if you're still raising here.
Yeah, I was having trouble finding the button.
No worries.
Just real quickly, back to the beginning of the class, when you were describing the PRD, if I understood you correctly, a way to produce something like that would just to go out to one of the LLMs and say, hey, produce me an outline for a PRD.
Yeah.
Specifically, as it regards working with Replit, for example, how might you have done that PRD differently to result in one of the problems that you ran into right off the get-go, where it didn't save the input data into a data store. And the second question is, do you already have, and if not, could you produce like a PRD specific to MindStudio development? And I'll shut up and listen now.
No, thank you. These are awesome questions. Well done. I was going to show you, so we can go to Claude or ChatGPT, and we can say, write a PRD for a whatever, Twitter clone. You can give it a name or you cannot give it a name, just Twitter clone. See what comes up with if you do a thing. And now, this is like a terrible prompt, like write a PRD for a Twitter clone. Hopefully you'll say more. But I'll just show you, like, this thing, even with this, will be like, great, I know what you mean. It's calling it Tweet Social. It's a microblogging platform. Enables users to share short form content. It says target audience, key features, user. So it's very similar. And this will absolutely work in giving this to a Replit or others to do. Like, this is already dramatically better than anything like humans would type into these prompts. And then you could go and you could do some research and you say, oh, I want a different type of template, right? Like, I'm sure you could ask Claude and like, what are the differences in templates that I might use for writing a PRD, or like what sections might I want to consider for this? So like, you can work with the models directly to get something like this that you can just copy and paste into the thing. The answer to your question is, would it have stopped the problem that we experienced? No. And in fact, this is sort of like one of the, at this moment, I would say frustrating things, but again, will be solved soon, getting solved all the time, which is sometimes it just works and then sometimes it breaks. See? And with the exact same problem, like if you did the same thing, you opened up a new tab and you started a new project and you put the same thing in and it would get it right or it would get it wrong. And now, again, the good news is like you can just say, hey, this stuff doesn't work, fix it. And then it'll go fix it. But this is just the way, LLMs work. They're what's known as non-deterministic, just a fancy word for saying that at different times they'll give you different output. And they are. In fact, if you ask it to write a poem, it won't write the same poem twice, theoretically ever.
Right.
Right. And same thing with this, like, or even the code base. Like it will take one project and it'll get the same project correct, like once it builds it. But if you look at the code, it built it in different ways. And so if you want it built in a very specific way, like you're technical and you say, no, this is the way I want my code to work. I want to use this library and I want to use this pattern and I want to use that. Well, then you have to sort of explicitly tell it to do that. And then periodically it'll still make mistakes and do weird stuff. And you'll be like, no, I explicitly told you not to do that. Like I explicitly told it that I want to use a Postgres database. That was in my spec. And for it to build it. Like it said, do you want me to build that for you? I said, yes, thank you. I already told you, but it still didn't do it.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, the good news is you can just go, if you've got the time, that's kind of the biggest thing. If you got the time and you've got the token costs covered, if you can spend your 5 cents or 25 cents or go to an all-you-can-eat plan like Claude and get it to do a bunch of work, and then do it, like time is the biggest constraint. But if you got the time, these things can build, not everything for you, but like amazing things, incredible things.
All right. Thank you.
I like your office there.
Well, there's a lot of history here.
That's what I mean. It looks lived in.
No, it's very much lived in.
I love it.
My projects are back behind me in white notebook folders. For a 71-year-old guy, I'm still awfully curious.
Whereabouts are you geographically?
Dallas, south of Dallas, Texas.
I was appreciating your Southern accent.
Well, thank you. Not everybody can even understand me.
I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, so I speak fluent Southern.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, so we are hitting 3 hours here. So one, kudos to you guys about hanging out for 3 hours, nerding out on this stuff. You all just a bunch of nerds, and I love that. It seems that since you're a bunch of nerds, that you might want more of this stuff, but let's not do it right now. A few things I can give you. Go to YouTube, go find MindStudio and watch some of these masterclasses I've given. There's like another 8 hours of stuff in there if you want to, you know, spend your weekend on that. I am all of this was in preparation for a class I'm teaching with this organization called the AI for Good Institute at Stanford. And that's happening in the summer. And this is like to prep it a little bit. That's a separate program. I'll send it along if any of you want to do that. That's going to be like a much longer thing. That's a 3-week thing. And then I'm going to do like 10 hours of things. This one's completely free. Obviously, that one's a paid thing. So just heads up on that. But and then Luis and I are about to do an entire curriculum. We think it's probably going to be 8 to 10 hours of video tutorials where we're going to take you through every nook and cranny of the platform as it is now and make that available on video. And it's going to be chopped up into smaller videos, but together you'll be able to see like all of the things. Many of them we've never sort of covered in video form. Our goal is to get that done, you know, over the next week or two. I'm surprising Louis. My goal is to try to get it done tomorrow and record my version of it, and maybe you'll record your version of it next week, and then we'll see what comes out of that. But we'll obviously share those with you. We do master classes all the time. There's another one Danielle is teaching. I'll be part of it on Monday. I think there's another one next week. So, you know, make sure you connect with us on LinkedIn. Please connect with me. I am super vocal on LinkedIn, and so you'll always see these things because I promote them. So if you don't want to miss some, just like follow me on LinkedIn, and you'll see these things. Or you know, we also send out emails, but sometimes those get lost in the shuffle. We have a Facebook group you guys can join. We have a LinkedIn group that's got over 3,000 members, but LinkedIn sends terrible notifications, so we're kind of disappointed that that's not a very good way to keep up with us. But you know, keep an eye out for more stuff, and then go play with these things. Go look at the agents, install the extension, make copies of them. Go play with Replit. You know, hopefully, again, I don't know how much we didn't get very far just because of a time constraint with Replit. But I've taught you the things you need to be able to go and spend more time with it and do it. Like you, and by the way, this is being recorded, so we're going to publish this. So like you could rewatch that early section when we were dealing with Replit, and then just go and do it yourself, and you'll be surprised. And please share, like as you do these things, we love it when people like share it on social media. Look what I built, or look what I struggled to build, or whatever it is. Like all of that's like super valuable to us and super valuable to everybody else. So please do it. And if you build some interesting stuff, anything, share it and let us see it. And if it's MindStudio stuff, we'll reshare it and all that. You know, we're super friendly. We're just a bunch of nerds like you guys. All right, folks. Well, again, thank you so much for being here, and have an awesome rest of your day, awesome weekend. And if you're still conscious, then we appreciate you and enjoy the night. All right, folks. Thank you. Be well.